Chapter 1187. According to the rules of the falling star continent, second-rate sects could be named with the word saint, such as the Lily Holy Sect and the World-Defying Holy Sect. Now that the certification was successful, the second-rate sect of all times could also add the word saint to its name. In fact, the sect of all times' full name was the strongest sect of all times. That was what was written on the signboard in front of the sect. After breaking through to the fifth rate, Yi Qianqing was worried that it would cause trouble, so he erased the word strongest. Master Yi really cared about Gosheng. Otherwise, those 5 words would definitely cause an uproar among the top sections. Because the sect announced itself as the sect of all times, even if Jun Changshao and his disciples thought that it should be called the strongest sect of all times, it would not be recognized by the world. It did not matter. The sect's name was like a code, as long as it was loud. At most, it would be called the strongest holy sect of all times. Jun Patriarch, Yi Qianqing said. Congratulations to your sect for becoming a second-rate sect. When we return, the certification hall will announce it to the public. Thank you, Hall Master Yi. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and smiled. Goodbye. Goodbye. After watching Yi Qianqing leave, Jun Changshao looked at Mu Changhong and Situ Haoyun and said, You've seen miracle, so I won't be staying for dinner. Since Jun Patriarch wants us to stay for dinner, then we'll accept. The two of you are freeloading to such an extent, you are simply insane. You're too kind. Since it was the first sect to become a second-rate sect in southwest Yangzhou, Jun Changshao had to celebrate, so he ordered the cafeteria to prepare as soon as possible for a celebration party at night. After hearing this, Yi Xingqian's eyelids twitched. Every time the sect held a celebration, he would definitely embarrass himself, so over time, he developed a psychological shadow. I can't drink it. I can't drink it. Yi Xingqian made up his mind again and again. But when the party started, when Lan Kong introduced that drunken dream had been improved, allowing one to absorb heaven and earth attributes faster after drinking it, Yi Xingqian's last line of defense collapsed. Come. Su Xiaoma also raised her glass in a heroic manner. As long as Anyo opened his heart, the two of them would definitely fight. They were simply enemies in the drinking field. Elder Zhen. When Lu Wancher, who was sitting far away, saw this, she hurriedly asked, Have you set up the formation? Yes. Zhen Dejuan said. Why was he so Yi Xingqian? Because he had consumed the formation aptitude fluid not long ago, he had already reached the formation sage level. Mu Changhong and Situ Haoyun would never have dreamed that after the fall of the ancient Array Emperor, the Eternal Sect would have a saint-grade Array Dao Master. Jun Changshao stood up and said, Everyone, let's toast to our sect's promotion to second rate. The disciples raised their cups and downed the drunken dream in one gulp. Not to mention, after Lan Kang's improvements, not only did the effect of the wine increase, but the strength of the wine was also reduced by a lot. Disciples who couldn't handle alcohol would feel like they were drinking a certain brand drink after drinking a cup. Suddenly, the sound of someone falling could be heard. Everyone turned their heads and saw Yi Xingqian lying under the table. Su Xiaoma. Li Qingyang. Lan Kong said with a face of collapse, the alcohol is already so weak that it's equivalent to nothing. Why did he fall down the moment he drank? I've sinned. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, Carry this disappointing fellow back. Yes, sir. Xiao Ziji walked over and supported the drunk Yi Xingqian. Li Qingyang anxiously followed. He was worried that junior brother Yi would not return to his room after getting drunk and would run to a place where he should not go. However, arriving at the dormitory area, Yi Xingqian suddenly opened his eyes and said indifferently, You guys can go back. Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji were stunned. That clear and cold gaze, that proud and unmoving body, other than the smell of alcohol, did not look like he was drunk at all. Junior brother Yi, you didn't drink too much? No. Yi Xingqian said indifferently and then turned to leave. From his footsteps, one could tell that he was sober. This, Xiao Ziji was a little confused. Li Qingyang smiled, Junior brother Yi has changed. He has become sophisticated. He had already roughly guessed that when Yixingchen and Su Xiaoma drank, they would either activate the alcohol or pretend to be drunk. That's right. Nyo was pretending to be drunk. The modified drunken dream would not make people drunk easily, but the enhancement effect had already appeared. In order to make better use of it and strengthen himself faster, he could only find an opportunity to slip out. With so many fellow sect members present, he did not care about his image and fell to the ground drunk. What exactly did Night Emperor experience in the sect of all times to have such a drastic change in his personality? Phew! After returning to his residence, Yixingchen exhaled a breath of alcohol and then headed to the spirit gathering array. With the enhancement of Drunken Dream, the absorption speed of heaven and earth attributes had greatly increased. He would spend the entire day in the array just to become stronger. However, an accident happened. Just as Yixingchen had been cultivating for an hour, the remnants of drunken life in his body suddenly erupted. The effects of the alcohol seemed to have turned into raging waves that rushed into his sea of consciousness, causing him to instantly lose his consciousness. Come, come. Drink this cup of wine. The martial arts field was brightly lit, and the disciples were still happily drinking. Even Lu Qianqian, who had always been unsociable, reluctantly drank a cup of wine when Lu Wancher and Yao Menjing called her eldest senior sister. Creak. Late at night, the Purple King slowly pushed open the door, took off his indestructible clothes, and fell straight onto the bed. Although this guy was from the beast race, he was also infatuated with human food and wine, so he drank quite a bit during the banquet just now. He even made Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, and the others so drunk that they danced in front of the fire with wine jugs. A bunch of brats, and they want to compete with me in drinking, simply. The Purple King muttered to himself and subconsciously pulled back the hand on his neck. Hand? Shwa! The purple craggy monster king got up abruptly and tried his best to stabilize his blurred vision. When he saw that there was someone lying on his bed, his drunkenness subsided and he roared, "Why is this brat sleeping on my bed, disciple's residence?" Li Qingyang, who was preparing to take off his clothes and go to bed, instinctively released his spiritual sense into junior brother Ye's room. He found that there was no one inside, so he got up and said in shock, "Where is junior brother Yi?" Not good. Su Xiaoma's voice came from outside, "Second senior brother, junior brother Yi is not in his room." Clang! Li Qingyang rushed out of the door and quickly said, "Hurry up and go to the livestock pen." Okay. Shwa! 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 For a moment, Li Fei, Tian Qi, Long Xiang, and the others were all alarmed. Because of their experience, they all headed to the livestock pen. Just as they passed by the Spirit Beast Peak, they heard a loud explosion and saw a figure falling from above, landing on the ground with a bam. They focused their attention and took a look. Wasn't this the Yixingchen that everyone was looking for? Damn it! The Purple King, who was standing on top of the Spirit Beast Peak with only a pair of red underwear, cursed with his hands on his waist. Why is he sleeping on this hall master's bed in the middle of the night? Is this kid sick? Is he a pervert? Everyone's expression became interesting. Chapter 1188. The next day, Yixingchen locked himself in his room. Even with the support of Drunken Dream, he did not cultivate in the spirit gathering array because he was too ashamed to go out. Sigh. Knowing that he went to the Purple King's room yesterday, Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "When will my disciple get rid of his bad habit of not being able to find his own bed when he's drunk?" Yixingchen was also very depressed. He did not deny that he had offended many martial emperors when he was drunk in his previous life, but it was not to the extent that he would run to the livestock pen every time he got drunk. It's not me. It's definitely not me. It must be that the possessed soul hasn't completely dissipated and took control of the body while I was drunk and did something embarrassing. Yixingchen pulled his hair and screamed in his heart. It was not hard to tell from his words that he wanted the dead Pei Aniu to take the blame for his drunken embarrassment. Speaking of which, if it was as Yixingchen guessed, the fact that the original owner's soul had not dissipated might be a punishment for forcefully taking over a body and implicating a life. In this world where martial arts were respected, although it was worthless, if there was karma, then the possession of Pei Anyu's body was the cause and the drunken embarrassment was the effect. To put it simply, he deserved it. The outside world was in an uproar. Because early in the morning, the certification hall headquarters released the news that the sect of all times had been promoted to a second-rate sect. All the counties in southwest Yangzhou knew about it. Oh my God! This promotion speed is too fast. It took 10 years to go from an unknown sect to a second-rate sect? 6 or 7 years at most. The sect of all times is the pride of our southwest Yangzhou. What sect of all times? It should be called the ancient sacred sect now. Yes, yes, yes. After the sect of all times was promoted to a second-rate sect, the cultivators in southwest Yangzhou were all talking about it and it immediately became the most explosive news of the day. The certification halls in other states received the news in a few days and then announced it in the form of an announcement, causing a huge commotion in the continent. It's normal. When City Lord Han learned of this, he said calmly, "There's nothing strange about it." After his experience in the planar battlefield, he was extremely impressed by the strength of Jun Changshao and the sect of all times. Otherwise, they would not have been able to create such a luxurious base. All the major sects remained calm after learning about this. He was even a little puzzled. With Jun Changshao's strength and ability, how could the sect be promoted to a third-rate sect so late? The discussions in the outside world were destined to last for a long time. After the celebration, everyone in the sect of all times continued to cultivate as usual. An appropriate amount of relaxation would make them more energetic. With the help of good food and wine, their improvement speed would be even more obvious. When can I trigger the epic quest? Jun Changshao sat in the study and pondered. He could not be satisfied with his current situation. He hoped that he could reach the highest level of cultivation on the falling star continent as soon as possible. Moreover, the main mission was to become the strongest sect. As the leader of a sect, if he did not have the strongest realm, he would not be recognized. The host has just broken through to the consummate level. It will take some time to trigger the epic mission, the system said. Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head, then focused on the space-time fortress, saying, "Since there's the 7 mysterious rays broken scroll, there must be other good things." "You still can't forget the 20,000 contribution points," the system said. Jun Changshao could not be bothered with it, saying, however, to be able to seal the scroll and prevent the system from succeeding, there must be many experts inside. "Even if I go, I have to be sneaky." "Bullshit." The system said, "If you walk by the river often, your shoes will get wet. This is at most a small accident. Don't find excuses." Jun Changshao was already doubting the system's ability. After all, he had so many contribution points, but he could not even steal the scroll. Wait a minute. Didn't this guy have a bad conscience? The system could not be underestimated, so it said in a serious tone, "The host can buy it again. Give me back the contribution points I spent earlier, and I'll buy it again." Money spent is spat out. Are you planning to lick it back? If it's money, I'll definitely lick it back. The system said, as expected of a shameless person. Oh please. Jun Changshao roared, "This is not a matter of being shameless or not. I spent money and didn't get the item. As a merchant, you have to give me an explanation. Buy it again, and you'll definitely get it." The system said firmly. Scram! Jun Changshao roared angrily. If it was just a few hundred or 1,000 points, it would not hurt to buy it a few times, but this was 20,000 contribution points. If he was cheated again, he would really have nowhere to cry. What happened to the trust between people? The system sighed helplessly. You still have the nerve to say trust. Jun Changshao was about to explode when a voice suddenly sounded in his ears, "Little brother, a warship has appeared in the universe." Oh? Gosheng instantly became serious. Ever since the 5 space tyrants appeared with their subordinates, he realized that the outside world was not safe, so he ordered the black and white double brakes to be more careful. He did not expect it to be useful today. Could it be that the handsome man's enemy is here again? Whoosh! Jun Changshao immediately flew out of the sect. He rode the ancient battlefield, broke through the space barrier, and merged into the dark universe. Although he had broken through to the consummate level of Wusheng, he still had to rely on the warship to enter this area. Otherwise, he would not be able to withstand the pressure of the universe's power. The black and white double brakes floated without being disturbed, and their gazes were locked onto a certain area. Jun Changshao looked over and saw a dot of light in the distance. At first, it was faintly discernible, but then it became brighter and brighter. This meant that it was quickly approaching. Little brother. White Rakshasa released a powerful spiritual sense and said, "The warship is very tall. It's carrying 2 people. How strong are they?" Jun Changshao asked. Black Rakshasa said, "They're both stronger than the handsome man. The interstellar navigation monarch would definitely be very happy. At least, although he was dead, his existence would be remembered from time to time, unlike some villains who were quickly forgotten after death." Who are they? Jun Changshao asked. White Rakshasa said, "The warship is engraved with the words Interstellar Fortress." Interstellar Fortress? Jun Changshao's expression became serious. Was it really as the burly middle-aged man said, that the 5 of them had second-class identities and were protected by the Interstellar Fortress? He had killed 2 and captured 3, and they were here to help him. However, 2 of them were just asking to be tortured. Whoosh! At this moment, the fortress warship flew to the falling star continent and slowly came to a stop. The 2 powerful experts with strong auras looked surprised. There was actually a high-grade warship that was not inferior to their own in the starry sky of a low-grade plane. This was really unexpected. "The 2 of you," Jun Changshao said loudly, "why have you come to the falling star continent?" The oldest old man with the strongest cultivation said indifferently, "Who are you?" "I am." Jun Changshao originally wanted to say the name of his sect, but he felt that it wasn't mighty and domineering enough. Therefore, he changed his words at the last moment, "The master of the falling star continent, Jun Changshao." Chapter 1189. Master of the Falling Star Continent. Jun Changshao's shamelessness was unimaginable. Because they were in the universe, the martial artists on the continent could not even see him. Bah! The system could not help but spit. If the sect of all times was recognized as the strongest sect on the continent, Jun Changshao, as the sect master, could be considered the leader of the sect. However, the title of Master of the Falling Star Continent was very big. First of all, he had to ask the 9 great martial emperors if they agreed. Fortunately, they were not here. Otherwise, they would have taken turns to rub this guy's face against the spatial barrier of the universe. Spatial barrier, don't, we can't handle it. Master of the Falling Star Continent? A stunned expression appeared on the old man's face. Then, his lips curled into a disdainful smile. A small trash plane that existed in the mortal universe actually had the title of Master. That was hilarious. Kid. The middle-aged man beside him said coldly, "Did you steal this warship from the 5 hegemons of the universe?" He had noticed the ancient warship a long time ago. It was impossible for a low-level plane to have such a warship. There could only be one reason: it must have been stolen. Jun Changshao pretended to be surprised and said, "You know the 5 bastards of the universe?" The old man's eyes suddenly became sharp. To be able to call them bastards meant that this kid was not on good terms with the 5 hegemons of the universe. Could it be that the disappearance of the falling star continent had something to do with this guy? "Kid," he said in a low voice, 2 of the 5 hegemons of the universe were killed and 3 disappeared. "Did you do it?" Sigh. Jun Changshao sighed and said, "It's a long story. Please listen to me slowly. Stop talking nonsense." The middle-aged man had a bad temper and said angrily, "Just tell me if you did it or not." "Yes." Jun Changshao did not deny it. The middle-aged man was stunned. He thought that the other party would deny it and find all kinds of excuses. He did not expect the other party to admit it so easily. This time, he was ordered to investigate this matter and found the culprit as soon as he arrived. The whole process could not be easier. The old man sneered and said, "Kid, the 5 hegemons of the universe are second-class residents of our fortress. You killed them and offended us. So what?" Jun Changshao said indifferently. "Humph," the middle-aged man said with a gloomy face, "if you know what's good for you, quickly hand over the other 3. Then seal your own meridians and follow us to the interstellar fortress for trial." "On trial?" Jun Changshao sneered, "Are you treating me as a prisoner? According to the laws of the Starry Sky Fortress, hurting a second-class citizen is an unforgivable crime." The middle-aged man said calmly. "Ha ha ha." Jun Changshao laughed heartily. Suddenly, his eyes turned cold and sharp as he said, "The laws of the outside world can't control me. On the contrary, those who come to the falling star continent have to obey the laws here. Even if they hurt a grass or a tree, they will be convicted." He was very angry. He was punished by the upper realm in the dimensional battlefield because he was guilty. Now, even a bullshit stronghold was saying that he was guilty. Did they really think that he was the universe's police? Black and white double breaks. Jun Changshao bellowed furiously, "Arrest these 2 fellows who entered the falling star continent without permission and bring them to the sect for trial." "Understood." Whoosh! Whoosh! The black and white duo hiding in the dark flew over. One hovered in front of the battleship while the other hovered behind it. They bent their heads and smiled, looking very much like those high-level fighters. The expressions of the old man and the middle-aged man changed slightly. The black and white martial artists who suddenly appeared had a very strong aura, causing them to panic a little. "Kid." The old man had been through a lot and said calmly, "Are you openly going against my Starry Sky Fortress? Is there a problem? My Starry Sky Fortress is famous throughout the mortal universe. Even the top planes have to be polite when they see us. A small falling star continent like you dares to provoke us. You are undoubtedly tired of living." After the old man said this, he should be able to charge 50% of his strength with one punch. Of course, although he was showing off, what he said was basically true. The Starry Sky Fortress was indeed very powerful in the mortal universe. One would rather offend the King of Hell than the Starry Sky Fortress. One would rather enter hell than the Starry Sky Fortress. These were the 2 most popular sayings in the mortal universe. First, it described how powerful the Starry Sky Fortress was. Whoever provoked it would be unlucky. Second, although hell was scary, it was far from the Starry Sky Fortress. Seeing that the old man's head was almost reaching into the depths of the universe when he was speaking, Jun Changshao was instantly angered. He said, "This seat wants to touch you. What can you do about it?" Shwa! Shwa! The black and white duo rushed over. A strong aura burst out, causing the universe to tremble. "Come on! Who is afraid of you?" The old man and the middle-aged man roared loudly. Their cultivation was even stronger than the handsome man's. Then, they squatted down to protect their heads and faces. Pang pang pang. Pang 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 pang. Plop. Plop. Soon, the 2 experts from the Starry Sky Fortress fell on the deck. They were beaten until their faces were swollen and bruised. White foam was coming out of their mouths from time to time. They were only slightly stronger than the Starry Sky Voyager King. According to the commander's power, they were at most 1, 2, 1, 3. Facing the black and white duo, they could only admit that they were unlucky. Just as Jun Changshao said, weren't they here to be tortured? In fact, the Starry Sky Fortress was mainly investigating. They didn't confirm that the Starry Sky 5 tyrants were related to him. Otherwise, they wouldn't have sent these 2 over. "Both of you." Jun Changshao squatted down and said, "You dare to behave atrociously in my Starry Sky continent with such strength? Are the people from your starry sky fortress so confident? The old man and the middle-aged man didn't speak because of their injuries. Take them away, Jun Changshao said. Lock them in the prison. Shwa! Shwa! The black and white duo grabbed one each. First, they sealed their meridians and cultivation. Then, they threw them into the prison of the Sect of all times. Creak. The door closed, and the environment became dark again. Damn it. The sealed old man was furious. He thought that this investigation would be a good job. In the end, he became a prisoner just as he found out about the Starry Sky 5 tyrants. Both of you. Suddenly, a voice came to his ears. The middle-aged man tried to turn his head and saw a smiling face. I'm Zhao Daodu, a senior prisoner of the Sect of all times. Do you need some spiritual guidance? Because the bald man and the 3 tyrants were locked up in the Earth Room, there was obviously a shortage of beds. Therefore, the powerhouses of the Starry Sky Fortress could only be locked up in the Heaven Room. This made Zhao Daodu overjoyed. His fellow prisoners came in waves, but they were never assigned to his cell. Now that 2 of them were sent over, he finally didn't have to talk to that stuffy Dai Lu anymore. Which state, county, and city are you 2 from? Based on my experience, you'll be interrogated soon. If you don't want to be tortured, you'd better confess. The guy in the corner is very stubborn. He's still locked up until now. I'm afraid he won't have a chance to get out in this lifetime. Of course, there's also me. Because I pretended to be June Patriarch and swindled people outside, I'm locked up. Sigh, it's been too long. I've forgotten how long I've been locked up for. Chapter 1190. Zhao Daodu was really an experienced prisoner. There were countless warriors imprisoned in the Sect of all times, and he was definitely a witness. Over time, this guy got used to it. Even when Jun Changshao wanted to let him go, he refused to leave. Why did he have to pretend to be someone else and swindle people outside? Wasn't it just to make a living? Although he was imprisoned, Zhao Daodu was already very satisfied with the delicious food provided every day. His slogan was, as long as the Sect of all times didn't fall, he would stay in prison forever. It wasn't despicable. It was that there were no normal people in the sect, and the prisoners were also freaking abnormal. As the saying went, if you weren't a family, you wouldn't enter the same house. Zhao Daodu belonged to the category of, if you weren't a family, you wouldn't enter the same house. Moreover, the most ridiculous thing was that this guy actually treated himself as a member of the Sect of all times. Although this member was a criminal, he often enlightened other prisoners, such as Dai Lu, who was about to explode from his nagging. Both of you. Zhao Daodu began to use his specialty, preparing to instill chicken soup for the soul. Creak. Right at this moment, the door opened. Zhao Daodu, who was preparing a complete set of persuasion, disappeared instantly, and sat cross-legged in the corner so skillfully that it made one's heart ache. As usual, Xiao Ziji first put down the chair after entering the door, then Jun Changshao sat down, crossed his legs, and said, both of you traveled thousands of miles from the universe just to avenge the 5 tyrants. The universe? Zhao Daodu's eyes widened. Dai Lu, who was facing the wall, also felt a little surprised. Could it be that these 2 guys who were newly imprisoned had extraordinary identities? The old man and the middle-aged man were silent. Obviously, they didn't listen to Zhao Daodu's persuasion and chose to face it with an attitude of, I don't know anything, I won't say anything. Jun Changshao leaned against the back of the chair and said indifferently, it wasn't easy for both of you to cultivate to the martial emperor level. Please cooperate with my questioning, otherwise, thousands of years of hard work will be in vain. A threat. It was a blatant threat. However, when Zhao Daodu heard what he said, her eyes instantly turned from wide open to protruding out. Even Dai Lv, who was like an old monk in meditation, opened his eyes with an expression of disbelief. These 2 people are martial emperors? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The 9 great martial emperors were the absolute faith of the falling star continent. No matter how powerful Jun Changshao was, how could he capture them? Humph. The middle-aged man said coldly, "Kid, show me what you've got. If I even frown, I'll change my surname to yours from today onwards." It could be seen from his eyes that he was truly unyielding. It was understandable. After all, martial emperors were the top existences in any mortal plane. It would be ridiculous if they did not have any pride. All right. Jun Changshao did not waste any more words. He ordered Li Qingyang to pull out the middle-aged man and throw him onto the training field. AI. Zhao Daodu shook his head and said, "That guy is going to be unlucky." He had seen many unyielding men, such as Dai Lu, who was sitting next to him. What happened in the end? He was still locked in a cell every day. Are you going to tell me? No. On the training field, the middle-aged man was as unyielding as ever. His whole body emitted an unyielding aura. Swish! Jun Changshao waved his hand, and the sky-origin soul-suppressing pagoda appeared out of thin air. Then, it enlarged and covered him. He said in a gloomy tone, "Arya, teach him a lesson." Swish! Swish! In the illusory environment, the soul-suppressing whip and soul-suppressing candle flew over. Then, Arya transformed into a human figure. She held one in each hand and began the most brutal lesson. The screen even showed the number of combos. Paw, paw, paw. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Ah, ah, ah. After the number of combos reached 999, Arya stopped and said, "Master, is this ruthless enough?" "Not bad," Jun Changshao said with satisfaction. The 6th palace master, who had been hiding in the corner the whole time, was so scared that his legs were trembling. It turned out that the girl had even more brutal training methods. Fortunately, she didn't use it on him. Otherwise, he would be in so much pain. Puff! The middle-aged man, who had been tortured 999 times, spat out a mouthful of blood. His face had shrunk into a fried dough twist. He looked as miserable as he could be. "I know you're a man," Jun Changshao said. "To show my respect, I'll torture him again." Arya. Yes. Arya was extremely excited and took out all kinds of tools. It was so much better to torture someone who could withstand both the soul and the body than the attributes and the soul. Don't. Don't. The middle-aged man's voice was hoarse and weak. I'll tell you. I'll tell you everything. What were you doing earlier?" Jun Changshao said coldly, "Torture him." Paw, paw, paw. Paw, paw, paw. After another hour of torture by Arya, a martial emperor expert finally lay on the ground like a dead dog. His legs twitched from time to time. His soul was about to be destroyed by the whip. Creak. The prison door opened, and the middle-aged man fell in like a pile of mud. Arya's whip was a soul attack, so there were no wounds at all on his appearance. Sigh. Zhao Daodu secretly glanced at him and secretly shook his head. "Why do you have to do this?" Jun Changshao sat down and said, "You came to the Starfall continent just to investigate the 5 hegemons of the Starfall continent?" The old man closed his eyes and said nothing. "That's right." The middle-aged man endured the great pain on his soul and said, "Guanzhou." The old man opened his eyes and said angrily, "You." The middle-aged man ignored him and continued, The 5 hegemons of the Starfall continent are under the protection of my fortress. 2 of them are dead and 3 are missing. Master sent us to investigate, very cooperative. The previous toughness and unyielding character were gone. Master? Jun Changshao asked, "Who?" "The fortress master." The middle-aged man said without hesitation. He was really beaten by Arya. As long as Jun Changshao asked something, as long as he knew something, he would definitely answer it. He could even answer it first. The old man's face was full of anger. If it weren't for his weak body, he would have already cursed. What is the name of the fortress master? How is his strength? Jun Changshao asked. The middle-aged man said, no one knows the master's name, and his strength is unfathomable. Unfathomable? Jun Changshao asked, have you heard of the Starfall Navigation King? Heard of it. How does your master compare to him? This guy intended to use the handsome man as a unit of combat strength for comparison. Perhaps he could roughly estimate the strength of the fortress master. The middle-aged man thought for a while, and his eyes were filled with disdain. That kind of trash that wanders the universe all day is not even qualified to carry the master's shoes. From his words, Jun Changshao could not analyze how many handsome men the fortress master had. He asked a few more questions in succession. Although he got answers, the middle-aged man knew very little about many things, so there was no reference value at all. However, there was one thing that Jun Changshao understood. The fortress had already been informed of the incident of the Starfall 5 tyrants. This time, it was nothing more than sending 2 people to investigate the Starfall continent. Once the matter of him killing them was exposed, they would definitely send more experts. It's a bit troublesome. Jun Changshao sat in the study and rubbed his temples. As for the stubborn old man, he had been thrown into the heaven origin soul-suppressing pagoda. It was not until he was thrown into the cell again that he finally understood why his companion had admitted defeat. You too. Zhao Daodu leaned over and said, are you really martial emperors? The 2 experts had not recovered from the soul whip, so they were too lazy to pay attention to this chatterbox. Li Qingyang, who had just closed the cell door and had not left yet, stood at the door and said, these 2 people are not only martial emperors, but also from other planes. As soon as these words came out, Zhao Daodu was dumbfounded. During the time he was imprisoned in the Sect of all times, he had a general understanding of Li Qingyang's character. He would never deliberately lie to him, so he returned to the wooden bed and knelt down with a plop. He looked up at the window and said with a face full of tears, Father, Mother, did you see that? Your son and the martial emperor are cellmates. Chapter 1191. Zhao Daodu was very weak. He was so weak that even without the support of the soul race, Dai Lu could still beat him until he cried for his parents. It was this low-level warrior who had to cheat to get by. Now, he was locked up in the prison of the Sect of all times, accompanied by 2 martial emperors. He was treated so well that it was unprecedented in history. Therefore, when Zhao Daodu learned of the strength of the experts in the fortress, he could not control his emotions and knelt in front of the window to express his joy to his deceased parents. There were ordinary people in the world of martial arts. Although they had set great dreams when they were young, their strength did not allow them to do so. They were destined to be mediocre for the rest of their lives. What about martial emperors? They were supreme existences, the absolute faith of the continent. Ordinary people and experts of this level belonged to 2 extremes. However, after entering the prison of the Sect of all times, the situation changed. Because regardless of whether they were strong or weak, rich or poor, they were all prisoners and enjoyed the same treatment. I've been in prison with martial emperors. Martial emperors and I are cellmates. The more Zhao Daodu thought about it, the more excited he became. He wanted to roar to the sky to release the joy in his heart. He even imagined standing on a storytelling stage after he was released from prison and telling the story of him and martial emperors in front of tens of thousands of people. Would anyone say that it was necessary? In this era where even young idols could cause fans to go crazy, the impact of the world's strongest appearing in front of the weakest was unimaginable. Not to mention Zhao Daodu. Dai Lu, who had a strong temperament, was also shocked when he learned that the 2 of them were martial emperors. Of course. He was not thinking about becoming cellmates with martial emperors, but that Jun Changshao had captured an expert of this level. Is this guy strong enough to defeat martial emperors? Dai Lu thought in his heart and immediately denied it. After all, he had only been locked up for a short period of time. Unless he ate an elixir, it was impossible for him to do so. Friends from the outside world. The excited Zhao Daodu walked over and said in the most formal tone, let me reintroduce myself. I'm Zhao Daodu, a senior prisoner of the Sect of all times. I'm very happy to be your cellmate. Please work together in the future. Guanzhou and the old man collapsed. How could a prisoner have such a sense of accomplishment on his face? In the study, Jun Changshao was still thinking about the Starry Sky Fortress. The people who came to investigate had been captured by him. Once they couldn't be contacted, they would definitely come again. The system said, 2 of them are martial emperors. This Starry Sky Fortress really can't be underestimated. Therefore, we must think of a way to make them give up on investigating the falling star continent, Jun Changshao said. How could he give up? This was a big problem, and it made him burn his brain cells like crazy. Got it. Jun Changshao had an idea and said, we can control those 2 and send them back to spread false information. The Starry Sky Fortress only knew that the 5 tyrants had disappeared in the falling star continent. They didn't know what happened or who the culprit was. They could provide false information and lead them in another direction. What false information? The system asked. Jun Changshao said, the 5 tyrants had a grudge with the Starry Sky Navigation King. I can use this to make a fuss. After thinking for a while, he decided to put all the blame on the handsome guy. After all, that guy was already dead. Boom! In the training field, the Heaven Origin soul-suppressing pagoda fell in front of Guanzhou and the old man. They were so shocked that cold sweat broke out on their backs. Jun Changshao sat in front of the main hall and crossed his fingers, saying, hand over your soul origin. Guanzhou and the old man's faces became ferocious. Soul origin was extremely important to a martial artist. Once they handed it over, they would become servants. They wanted to resist and rather die than submit. However, the Heaven Origin soul-suppressing pagoda in front of them released an aura that seemed to whip their souls. Either hand over your soul origin or go in and be tortured. Jun Changshao said calmly, I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. 1. 2. Yes, yes, yes. Guanzhou and the old man said in unison. Aria's appearance as a girl was very cute. However, they would rather hand over their soul origin than see it again. Because when she was angry, she would turn into a little devil from hell. Zhao Daodu, the spiritual tutor, often fed the prisoners chicken soup, but the results were not satisfactory. Aria's poisonous chicken soup, instantly destroying the mind and soul, was more direct and effective. Whoosh! Whoosh! Guanzhou and the old man forced their soul origin out. Jun Changshao raised his hand and pinched the 2 souls in his hand. A smile appeared on his face. From this moment on, the life and death of the 2 martial emperors from the Starry Sky Fortress was in his control. Guanzhou and the old man were filled with sadness, pain, anger, and other negative emotions. Go back to the Starry Sky Fortress and tell the Starry Sky Fortress that the 2 tyrants were killed by the Starry Sky Navigator King, and the other 3 were kidnapped by him. Jun Changshao said. That universe wanderer is weak. There is no way he could have killed the 5 tyrants. The old man looked conflicted. Telling him to lie about the situation was not a problem, but at least he had to respect the facts. Jun Changshao said, go back and tell the Starry Sky Navigator King and the 5 tyrants were at odds because of... He paused, then said, a remnant scroll. A remnant scroll? Guanzhou and the old man were confused. Their expressions confirmed Jun Changshao's suspicions. Even in the Starry Sky Fortress, the remnant scroll of the 7 mysterious rays of light was not something an ordinary person could have access to. The system said, being able to see and prevent the remnant scroll from being taken away means that there is an extremely high defense system. So, Jun Changshao said, only the Starry Sky Fortress knows about the remnant scroll. When he heard that the Starry Sky Navigator King also had it, and even fought with the 5 tyrants for it, he must have put his attention on it. The system said, using the remnant scroll to distract the Starry Sky Fortress is a good idea, but it is also a great risk. If the Starry Sky Fortress finds out, it won't just be killing the second-class citizens of the fortress. I'm not worried about being exposed. Jun Changshao said seriously, I just hope to buy some time. Two random people were sent to investigate, and both of them had the strength of a martial emperor. It didn't take much to figure out that the Starry Sky Fortress was not simple. If he was given time to develop, it shouldn't be a problem. He was now Wu Sheng, a consummate martial emperor. He could use all kinds of trump cards to fight a martial emperor, but he wanted to become a martial emperor as soon as possible. The system said, because of the system, the host's martial path is different from ordinary people. Whether or not you can break through to martial emperor depends on the method. Under normal circumstances, a martial artist's breakthrough was mostly about luck. For example, the protagonist came across a cave and obtained it after fighting with various masters, and then broke through to the next realm. Jun Changshao was different, because he had cheated all the way. Whether or not Jun Changshao could become a martial emperor depended on what kind of cheats he unlocked, and what method he used to break through. It was not a step-by-step competition of luck, or inheriting the legacy of some almighty master. Luck? Legacy? These traditional opportunities were all condensed in the system store and missions. Chapter 1192. Jun Changshao had a plan. All that was left was to see how the two of them would work together to trick the fortress master. Jun Patriarch, Guanzhou said with a frown. We're so badly injured. Even if we go back, we won't be able to report back, it's not a big problem. Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, follow me. He sent Guanzhou and the old man into the space-time secret realm. Under the acceleration of time, they recovered as quickly as possible. Even after they came out, the two of them were still in shock. They had been cultivating for thousands of years. What had they not seen? He had never seen or heard of such a thing that could maximize the time spent in one's body. That's amazing. This is simply unbelievable. Guanzhou and the old man left the falling star continent in shock. Although the two of them did not understand what the remnant scroll meant, Jun Changshao had already given the order. They had no choice but to trick the fortress master. The two of them were quite pitiful. It was supposed to be a pretty good job, but in the end, their soul origin was trapped in someone else's hands. They even had to betray their master. If they were not careful, they might die at any time. Sigh. Guanzhou and the old man sighed on the warship. The two of them suddenly had an aura of, who doesn't get hurt when they're in the martial world? My two brothers. In the main hall of the Sect of all times, Jun Changshao ordered, keep an eye out for the outside world during this period. If anyone suspicious approaches the continent, inform me immediately. It was hard to say if Guanzhou and the old man would succeed. He had to plan ahead and prevent any accidents from happening. Yes. The black-white double karma cupped their hands. Although they had not been in the sect for long, they had already integrated themselves into the role of guardians. It was because of the two sworn brothers that Jun Changshao had the confidence to capture the powerhouses sent by the fortress. However, their strength was limited. If the other party sent more powerhouses, they could only suffer the feeling of being bullied. The Sect of all times entered a peaceful state again. The disciples continued to indulge in their cultivation and could not pull themselves out. The Starry Sky Fortress and the failed purchase of the Remnant Scroll had stimulated Jun Changshao. It was rare for him to focus on cultivation, and he began to seriously consider his future plans. In the Falling Star continent, he was already the strongest existence below the 9 god monarchs. However, after coming into contact with higher levels, he felt more and more insecure. What's the problem? Jun Changshao wondered. The system said, the problem lies in the defense system. What do you mean? Back then, when the host had just transmigrated, although your realm was not high, no matter how you courted death, you would always turn danger into safety. Do you know why? There's a blade that can't be retracted. That's not true. Then why do you think it is? That's because the host has a sect protecting formation. As long as you don't provoke an overwhelming power, you can always protect yourself and the sect's disciples. That makes sense. Jun Changshao agreed. In the early stages, he was so unrestrained that the unstoppable blade was of limited use. Most of the time, he relied on the sect protecting formation to protect the sect. Even if he got into big trouble, he could remain calm and collected. At most, he would just hide in his shell like a turtle and not come out. The system continued, with the host's strength, even if you can't defeat the Starry Sky Fortress, you can still protect yourself. But what about the sect? What about the falling star continent? Hearing the system's words, Jun Changshao suddenly understood. The gradually rising sense of insecurity was not because of himself, but because of the sect and the falling star continent. The system said, the host is only a small step away from reaching the highest realm in the mortal plane. The enemies you encounter in the future will also be destructive. Therefore, the slightest negligence will cause the destruction of the sect and the plane. Jun Changshao was silent. In the past, he could fight with any sect, but ultimately, it was just small skirmishes. Even when he went to the plain battlefield, he relied on cheating. If something happened, he could escape, and there was no need for the sect and the falling star continent to bear any consequences. However, the Starry Sky Fortress was in the universe and was not limited by the upper realm. It could come to his territory at any time and bring about fatal destruction. Therefore, it brought about invisible pressure and a sense of insecurity. How should I break it? Jun Changshao murmured. It's very simple. The system said, open the high-level store and refresh the goods inside. Maybe you can get a higher-level sect protecting formation, or a formation that can protect the entire plane. In the end, it was still marketing. However, this time, Jun Changshao did not roar or look down on it. Instead, he fell into deep thought. The system was right. The sense of insecurity came from the sect and the falling star continent. After all, one was the most important family, and the other was related to the main mission. Even if he could encounter danger, his home and foundation must be safe. To put it bluntly, Jun Changshao could seek death in various ways outside, but he could not allow his base to be stolen for no reason. He had to set up a plan and strengthen it. The system said seriously, you must choose the best defensive formation and build the defense system with the highest safety factor. What crystal, high tower, second tower, first tower, whatever you can put on it, put it all on it. How many contribution points do you think this set will cost? 100,000. That's just the cost. Don't think it's expensive, there's no discount. A protagonist who is willing to pay 100,000 contribution points won't mind spending an extra 100,000. Get lost. Jun Changshao said in annoyance, don't talk nonsense with me. After careful consideration, he still did not open the high-tier shopping center. The main reason was that there were only a few tens of thousands of contribution points. Moreover, there were almost no array-related products. If he relied on luck, he could easily go bankrupt. I am now a powerhouse who is infinitely close to Martial Emperor. If I rely on the shopping center when I encounter something troublesome, I will really be useless. So, I have to use my own wisdom to resolve everything. This is what a true powerhouse should be like. Jun Changshao held his head high and took out the original book of the Mystic 32 Formations. Wasn't it just a formation? This kind of secret manual that was modified by an almighty must have even more advanced ones. He did not need to rely on the shopping center to strengthen his base's defense. Fuck. The system said, this thing was bought from the shopping center. If you have the ability, throw it away and don't use it. Fuck off. Jun Chang scolded with a smile. Then, he directly opened the most noble super-grade book. The various array formations listed on it immediately dazzled him. No. I still have to look for Elder Zhen and Xinyao. As he did not want to let special talents freeload in the sect, Jun Changshao gave the aptitude elixir to Elder Zhen. Therefore, other than being strong in martial arts and swordsmanship, he was not particularly outstanding in other aspects. It was very easy to be an all-round powerhouse. It was just that Go Sheng was not willing to. After all, developing the sect was already tiring enough. If he also had to take on various professions such as alchemy, medicine, and formations, then he would really be busy from day to night, from birth to death. Formation Hall. Jin Dejuan opened his mouth. Shangguan Xinyao's bright eyes were filled with disbelief. Is there a problem? Jun Changshao asked. Jin Dejuan's mouth twitched. Patriarch, what is the reason that made you suddenly have the idea of creating a formation that covers the entire falling star continent? Can you do it or not? Give me a straight answer. No. Jin Dejuan and Shangguan Xinyao said in unison. Chapter 1193. Jun Changshao did not plan to rely on them all. He planned to rely on the people he nurtured himself. In the end, Elder Zhen and Shangguan Xinyao instantly slapped their faces and said no. Creating a formation that directly covered the falling star continent was really impossible. It was really unimaginable. Reason: it's too big. Jin Dejuan also wanted to break through himself and challenge a high level of difficulty. However, with his current strength, even if he could set up a super high defensive formation, it was absolutely impossible to extend it to the entire world. Patriarch. Shangguan Xinyao said, such a huge project, not to mention whether it can be set up successfully or whether it can have a defensive effect, just outlining the formation and line will take a lot of time. A formation that was a few feet in size, one person might be able to set it up very quickly or even in 2 or 3 days. But to cover the entire world, it would really be so tiring that one would vomit blood and be so tired that one's head would explode. The falling star continent was far larger than Earth. Even if the warriors here could fly in the sky and burrow into the ground, to set up a defensive formation system on the entire plane would consume manpower and material resources. It was definitely not something that the sect of all times could afford, nor could it be done in 30 to 50 years. Alright. Jun Changshao gave up on the unrealistic idea and said, then hurry up and develop a higher level formation that can protect the sect. It's best if it can withstand the attacks of the martial emperor level. Jin Dejuan said, Patriarch, Xinyao and I have been researching, and now we have made progress. Swoosh! As he spoke, he took out the copy of the 32 formations of the Mystic Gate, then opened the third to last page, pointed at a formation, and said, this formation should be suitable for the sect of all times. The formation recorded on it was called the 9 Stars Mooncatcher Formation. It was the highest level of defensive formation in the Supreme Section. 9 formations were set up in 9 directions, and then together, they supported the core formation in the centermost area. The advantage of the formation was that it had the support of 9 stars, and its defensive performance was extremely strong. Its weakness was also very obvious. It required crystal cores or spirit stones to maintain. How much? Jun Changshao asked. Jin Dejuan held his chin and estimated, just to cover the entire Iron Bone Mountain, it would require at least 10 million spirit stones. Artificial? Natural spirit stones. The corner of Jun Changshao's mouth twitched. In the past, the array formations could be solved with some good quality array flags. This 9 Stars Mooncatcher Grand Array actually required 10 million natural spirit stones. It was simply burning money. Do you still need spirit stones for the follow-up maintenance? He could afford to fork out 10 million yuan, and it wasn't particularly heart-wrenching. However, if he were to build it, he would have to continuously provide for the follow-up maintenance. He definitely couldn't afford it. Jin Dejuan said, after the formation is activated, if it is not attacked from the outside, the energy stored in the spirit stones will circulate and grow endlessly. There is no need to provide additional energy. That's fine. Jun Changshao thought for a moment and said, let's go find old Yuan. Jin Dejuan broke down and said, that guy is so stingy. It's better that the patriarch go personally. Ever since Yuan Gongzi took charge of the internal affairs and finances of the sect of all times, he had been very careful in many areas. It was really difficult for the few halls to get money. This kind of strict control of money could help the sect increase its income and reduce its expenditure, but at the same time, it could easily offend people. This was also the reason why Old Yuan was not popular in the Demon Emperor's Gate. Okay. Jun Changshao said, I'll go. When he found Yuan Gongzi, took out 10 million natural spirit stones, and finally did all kinds of calculations. In the end, he even had to make his own handprints. Go Xing instantly broke down. Damn it. Wasn't this a little too meticulous? Jun Changshao did not criticize Old Yuan. Instead, he let him continue to promote the style of being diligent and thrifty. After all, a sect had to have rules and regulations, especially when it came to resources. Yes. Receiving the Patriarch's support, Yuan Gongzi's blood surged. At the Demon Emperor's Gate, because the management of finances was very strict, the higher-ups often joined forces to target him. The sect master had also criticized them not to be too strict, so they were unable to carry out the principles. Now, Jun Changshao was able to provide management support. This was really a good opportunity. The atmosphere in the sect of all times was incomparable to other sections. Even if Yuan Gongzi was strict in managing finances, the other halls expressed their understanding. As for the disciples, they also helped each other. There was no mutual deception, and there was no conspiracy. After receiving tens of millions of natural spirit stones, Zhen Dijuan gathered Shengguan Xiniao and the members of the Array Formation Hall and began to study vigorously, striving to put the arrangement of the 9 stars moon embracing Great Array on the agenda as soon as possible. Jun Changshao went to the medicine hall again and reminded Elder Wei not to slack off in planting medicinal herbs. Patriarch. The next day, Ning Duxing said, Today is the day of the opening of the sect to recruit disciples. Patriarch, do you have any other instructions? As long as they meet the assessment conditions and the number of disciples meet the requirements, we can recruit them. Jun Changshao said. Yes. Ning Duxing retreated and prepared for the recruitment. He and Ning Duzue were responsible for recruiting disciples every month, so they were very familiar with it. As for Jiangye, Ding Xingwang, Gong Sun Haohai, and other high-level elders, they were either cultivating or giving lectures on weekdays. They had almost no free time. The one with the most workload was Li Luoqiu. She had to sift through all kinds of valuable information at every moment. On the other hand, Jun Changshao. He was very leisurely lying in front of the sect gate, quietly watching the youngsters climbing up the mountain as a bystander. Not bad. Not bad. Jun Changshao sipped his tea while looking at the youngsters climbing up the mountain. In a short time, he found a lot of good seedlings. It was interesting to cultivate trash, and he had already unlocked this achievement. After all, Su Xiaoma, Li Fei, Tian Qi, and the others were the best proof. Therefore, when the sect recruited disciples, they also tried to recruit talented people as much as possible. This way, it would be easier to cultivate them and consume less resources. It's Jun Patriarch. Oh my god, I finally see him in person. He is much more handsome than when he was in the projection array. The youngsters climbing up the mountain found Jun Changshao lying on the recliner one after another, and their eyes were suddenly filled with strong worship. Most of them came for the patriarch of the sect of all times. After all, everything he did in just a few years could be called legendary. The sect of all times was now famous in the Falling Star continent, so there were a lot of youngsters coming to sign up for the assessment every month. It was easy to recruit more than 1,000 talented youngsters. Ding! Sect members, 700,007,0000. After giving the precise number of people and recruiting the last one, the number of sect members on the system panel reached the peak and continued to send notifications. Ding! Sect mission activated. Qingyang. Jun Changshao stood up from the recliner and said, Organize the inner and outer disciples to complete the missions in the mission pavilion as soon as possible. Yes. In the following time, Li Qingyang organized the disciples to do missions, especially missions that rewarded achievement points. After studying for a period of time, the Array Formation Hall began to set up the 9 stars moon capturing array and selected 9 areas to set up the auxiliary array. Buzz! Half a month later, the main array that enveloped Iron Bone Mountain and Iron Bone Town was set up. The light that soared into the sky could be said to be brilliant and radiant, and it emitted an incomparably vigorous aura. Patriarch Zhen Dejuan said happily, "The array is completed." Chapter 1194. Boom! In front of the mountain gate, there was a sudden explosion, and powerful energy ripples spread out. Jun Changshao retracted his fist and looked at the barrier that was still not affected by his powerful attack. He said with satisfaction, "It's really strong." Zhen Dejuan said, "As long as the 9 arrays continue to support, the 9 moon capturing array will withstand extremely powerful attacks." "Not bad, not bad." Jun Changshao gave a high degree of affirmation, and the insecurity that originally rose dissipated a lot. As long as the sect's defense was strong enough, at least when he went out, he would not have to worry about the base being stolen. Shwa! Jun Changshao raised his fist and planned to do it again. Zhen Dejuan hurriedly stopped him. Patriarch's punch just now cost 100,000 spirit stones in the main array. Fuck! Jun Changshao collapsed. Is it that bad? The 9 moon capturing array did not consume energy when it was operating normally, but once it received an attack, it would be offset according to the strength. One punch cost 100,000 spirit stones, and Gosheng felt a stabbing pain in his heart. Forget it. Jun Changshao gave up the idea of continuing the test and returned to the study. Now, let's wait for this disciple to complete all the sect missions, upgrade the sect's construction, and unlock more functions. Right. What are the functions after level 9? Shwa! After opening the system panel and clicking on the sect function, he found that there was only a word "none" at the bottom. What does that mean? Jun Changshao asked. The system said, "It's very simple, there are no more sect functions." No way. Jun Changshao's face collapsed. Cards like Hard to Keep Blade and Universal Talisman were only used to strengthen oneself. The various functions given by the construction and upgrade were the key to the sect's strength. There were no more advanced functions in the future. The system complained, "Host, don't you have to rely on yourself?" Ding! Disciple Yixingchen has completed the sect mission and received 100 contribution points and 100 achievement points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 7010070000. Ding! Sect achievement points, 2011070000. Ding! Overflow of sect contribution points. After hearing the notification, Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "I've finally completed one." It had been half a month since the sect missions that gave achievement points appeared. Because the higher the level, the more difficult it was, the more time it took for the disciples to complete them. Moreover, there were many unreasonable missions. For example, what Yixingchen was doing required him to continuously enter the Tower of Experience for a fixed number of days. Was it difficult? To the Ninth Arch, it was nothing at all, but it was just too much of a delay. Su Xiaomo's mission was even more bizarre. He had to travel around the falling star continent for 30 days. At this moment, he was holding hands with his fiancée, Xia Shuiyun, and enjoying the beautiful scenery. Li Qingyang had also accepted a mission to go to Lu province in the northeast. Little Cold Village. Sister Qiao stood in the village like a winter plum. Her clear eyes looked outside the village entrance at the man in the Sect of All Times uniform. Both of them smiled at the same time. In order to avoid spreading dog food to the readers, the second and third disciples' quests were not described in detail. In short, the higher the level of the sect, the more bizarre the sect missions were. It was not a problem for the Sect of All Times disciples to complete them, but it would take time. Shwa! With a thought, Jun Changshao skillfully pulled out the high-level store. If all the sect missions were completed, he would be rewarded with 70,000 achievement points and contribution points. Therefore, he had to spend them in advance and leave enough space to store them. If you have the ability, don't use the store. If you have the ability, rely on yourself. The system jumped out again. Alright then. Jun Changshao withdrew the high-level store and said indifferently, "From now on, Jun Changshao will not spend any more." After a short silence, the system said, "Brother, I was wrong. It had been operating normally until now because Jun Changshao spent contribution points. If he did not spend them, the situation would be very bad. Do you have any shame?" "I have no shame." Jun Changshao was defeated by this guy. He could only pull out the high-level store again and began to carefully browse the goods inside. He thought to himself, "It's best if there's a half-saint pill, wuxing pill, or something like that. Why don't you think of a martial emperor pill to help the host ascend to the upper realm? What about reaching the peak of life?" The system said, I can admit my mistake. But I still have to complain. Four corners heaven and earth formation." Jun Changshao's gaze locked onto an item, then he clicked on the detailed introduction. Item, Four corners heaven and earth formation introduction, a formation created by many people. It can be formed by up to 10,000 people. Advantage, martial artists set up the formation together to form an offensive and defensive unit, thus trapping and annihilating the target. Disadvantage, the cultivation of the person who set up the formation must not be lower than Wu Huang's realm. Price, 50,000 contribution points. Level, above divine level, no way. Jun Changshao was stunned, a formation is so expensive. However, after seeing the level, he was overjoyed, it should be something good. The Four Corners Heaven and Earth formation was very different from the Nine Stars Mooncatcher formation because the latter was fixed while the former was based on people. Just like the Wudang Sect's 7 Stars Sword formation and the Shaolin Sect's 18 Bronze Men formation. The sect of all times did not lack fixed formations, but they lacked this kind of human-centered formation, and it was above divine level. That's why. The system said, the host still has to rely on the store. Do you want to slap your face? Get lost. Jun Changshao spent 50,000 contribution points to buy the Four Corners Heaven and Earth formation. This formation was actually more like a martial arts secret manual. It described the chants and complicated moves. After learning it, one could turn into a stepping demon and set it up. It can be set up by up to 10,000 people, the power must be terrifying. Jun Changshao was very much looking forward to the spectacular scene of the disciples comprehending the Four Corners Heaven and Earth formation and setting it up in the sky. That afternoon, the disciples and higher-ups whose cultivation had reached Wu Huang's level all gathered at the main peak's training field. Then, each of them received a Four Corners Heaven and Earth formation. This formation, He Wudi said in surprise, it's definitely not ordinary. He had never cultivated a joint formation before, but just by flipping through it a little, he could see the profound meaning behind it. If it was set up by many people, the power would definitely be strong. Yi Xingqian also noticed it, but he showed disdain. Because of his personality, he preferred martial arts that provided powerful strength. He had no interest in this kind of team-based formation. However, since the patriarch said that he had to cultivate it, then he could only reluctantly do it. The Four Corners Heaven and Earth formation inherited the advantage of being easy to understand from the store's items. Moreover, the disciples who met the requirements were not weak, so there was no difficulty in comprehending it. Second senior brother. A few days later, Su Xiaoma said excitedly, I learned it. I learned it too. Li Fei said. Jun Changshao knew that his disciples had comprehended the Four Corners Heaven and Earth formation, so he chose a day and ordered them to come to the main peak's training field. Patriarch Li Qingyang said, everyone is here. There were quite a lot of people, a total of 300 to 500. Yes. Jun Changshao nodded and sent a sound transmission, Hall Master Z, come here for a moment. The Purple King, who had just entered the back mountain and was preparing to go to the experience tower, stopped in his tracks. He frowned and said, there's an ominous sign. Go? Or not? Chapter 1195. On the huge training field of the main peak. 4 streams of light shot into the sky like 4 smooth mirrors, emitting an aura that seemed to come from ancient times. With Lu Qianqian in the lead, the 300-odd disciples lined up in 4 directions. From the position of each point, one could see that there was something mysterious about it. Not bad. A satisfied smile appeared on Jun Changxiao's face. They had just cultivated the 4 corners heaven and earth formation and were able to set it up for the first time. It could be seen that they had a very high degree of tacit understanding. Let's go. At this moment, Li Qingyang, who was in charge of commanding, shouted. Whoosh! Whoosh! All the disciples staggered their steps and swapped positions. Following their movements, the light that seemed to be the array formation's boundary flashed with a dazzling light, and an even crazier attack was formed inside. Yes, Tai Yi. Whoosh! 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 Enter Tai Chi. Whoosh! 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 In a short time, the 300-odd disciples changed positions several times. The ancient aura became stronger and stronger, deeply affecting the disciples watching from afar. Because the boundary was not transparent, it was difficult for them to see what was happening inside. However, from the increasing strength of the boundary, they could guess that it must be very terrifying. Ding Xingwang, who was standing in front of the main hall, had a solemn expression. The array formation set up by these few hundred fellows gave him an extremely strong sense of oppression. Not bad. Old Ding thought to himself, I did not go in. Gong Sun Haohai, Jiang Ye, and the other upper echelons stood outside and watched. They all felt the aura of the 4 corners heaven and earth formation. I heard from the Patriarch that this kind of cooperative array formation can support 10,000 people at the same time. A few hundred people are already so amazing. If it's set up by 10,000 people, the scene is simply unimaginable. The upper echelons were shocked. Big black fool! White Rakshasa exclaimed. This array formation should not exist in the mortal world. The mighty figures from the upper world all had shocked expressions. This meant that Jiang Ye and the others were not inexperienced. Black Rakshasa said calmly, since the Patriarch is the personal disciple of the 7 profound sage, it is normal for him to use any kind of martial technique or array formation. That's true. White Rakshasa immediately felt relieved. The 2 of them firmly believed that Jun Changxiao was the direct disciple of the 7 profound sage. This was not something that Go Sheng had boasted about himself, but something that he had imagined after becoming a sect protector and seeing all kinds of martial arts techniques and martial arts facilities. An hour later, after dozens of changes, Lu Qianqian and the others finally stopped. Swish! Swish! The 4 sides of the martial arts practice field combined together, and the cage-like flowing light enchantment suddenly dissipated. Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo-hoo! Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others were breathing rapidly, large beads of sweat seeping out of their foreheads. It could be seen that after the 4 corners heaven and earth formation was formed, although it emitted an aura that even Wu Sheng was afraid of, the person who set it up had to use a lot of physical strength and energy. Plop! The sound of someone falling could be heard. The Purple King, who was wearing red underwear, lay paralyzed in the center of the martial arts practice field. His entire body was covered in fist, palm, and foot prints. He looked extremely miserable. When he heard Jun Changxiao's shout, he had a bad omen. Now, his wish had come true. The Purple King, who had entered the 4 corners heaven and earth formation to test its power, was only exhausted at this moment. In fact, he did not suffer any serious injuries. Patriarch Li Qingyang said, this formation is very powerful. It would be difficult for any one of them to compete with Hall Master Z. Even if they worked together, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. Now, they had used the 4 corners heaven and earth formation to exhaust him. It was simply unbelievable. In the Falling Star Continent's cultivation system, martial disciples and martial masters might be defeated by many low-level cultivators. However, as one's cultivation level increased, it was not something that could be suppressed by numbers. Take martial emperors for example. Could 100 Wusheng defeat one of the strongest cultivators on the continent? Impossible. The difference between Wu Sheng and martial emperors was not only in strength, but also in the attributes of heaven and earth, the power of space, and other aspects. If you hit me, I would be suppressed by the emperor's aura. If 10 of them fought against me, I would be suppressed by the emperor's aura. If 100 of them fought against me, I would be suppressed by the emperor's aura. Not to mention martial emperors, just Jun Changshao now. With Wu Sheng's cultivation at the peak stage, dozens of peak stage Wu Sheng could defeat him directly even if they did not use their trump cards. Of course. It was not that there was nothing they could do if their cultivation level was higher. If 100 people were not enough, they would send 1,000 people. If 1,000 people were not enough, they would send 10,000 people. As long as they were not afraid of sacrificing themselves and used the tactic of using numbers to fill in the gaps, they would definitely be able to exhaust the opponent. This was a stupid method. Smart people used various martial arts concepts to create a series of formations. Thus, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 was infinite. It was very good to deal with the situation where the enemy was strong and they were weak. The four corners heaven and earth formation was one of them. It fully gathered the power of the people who set up the formation and then continuously magnified it. It made it so that the weak group could fight against the strong group. Of course. If the disciple who set up the formation just now was Wu Huang from the Falling Star continent, even if the formation was set up, he would definitely be defeated by Hall Master Z. The formation set up by more than 300 core disciples only exhausted that guy. The efficiency is not very high, Jun Changshao said to himself with a little dissatisfaction. Come on. The system said, among your disciples, there are only dozens of peak stage Wu Huang. The rest are only at the 5th or 6th level. Not to mention 300, even 3,000 of them are not enough to defeat you. Now you are using the formation to exhaust them. What's there to be dissatisfied with? Jun Changshao thought for a while and said, it seems to make sense. Remove the word seems and seems for me. The system's temper was successfully affected by the host. It suddenly became roaring when it was agitated. The Purple King, whose strength was only second to the black and white double ghosts, was exhausted by more than 300 disciples whose average strength was at the 5th or 6th level of Wu Huang. This showed how powerful the square heaven-earth formation was and why it was worth 50,000 contribution points. However, he had only just succeeded in cultivating it. When Li Qingyang and the others understood the formation better and had more people, Hall Master Z would be even more miserable if he went in for the test. Patriarch. The Purple King, who was lying on the bed and recovering some strength, roared, I am a Hall Master, not a punching bag. If there is such a thing in the future, can you not call me? Even a clay figurine had a temper. Not to mention this purple rock from the upper realm. Hall Master Z. Jun Changshao said, it's been hard on you. Here. He handed over a few space rings and said, there are 100,000 beast cores here. Take it as compensation for coming in for the test. Humph. The Purple King snorted with disdain, but his bandaged hand consciously reached out. Rest well. Jun Changshao comforted him and turned to leave. Wait. The Purple King shouted. After pausing for a while, he said with a smile, if there is a test in the future, let me know immediately. I will definitely be on call. We will cooperate perfectly. Sigh. The purple rock who dared to steal dragon eggs in the upper realm had really changed after joining the sect of all times. No. I haven't changed. Hall Master Z said proudly in his heart, all of this is for my own kind, for the beast race to never be slaves. Using Hall Master Z as a test is still considered a friendly test. After returning to the study, Jun Changshao thought for a while and decided, we can bring the disciples to the battlefield and find powerful existences to test. The next day, he gathered Li Qingyang and the other 300 disciples and used the portal to enter the Falling Star continent again. When the big shots of the various existences heard the news of Jun Changshao's appearance, they were in despair and broke down. They cried, why is that guy here again? Chapter 1196. Why did all the bosses know about Jun Changshao the moment he arrived at the battlefield? That was because they would naturally send a large number of spies outside the stronghold of the Falling Star continent for someone who dared to fight against the upper realm. He's here. He's here. The spies outside the stronghold were familiar with each other. Not only did they greet each other, but they also often chatted together. The Falling Star continent was probably the only place where all the realms had to pay attention to him even when he was not around. Of course. The spies sent by the bosses were not to monitor Jun Changshao. Instead, they were waiting for him to appear and report to them immediately. Then, they quickly ordered their subordinates to behave themselves and not offend that guy. Let's put it this way. Before Jun Changshao arrived, the battlefield was as usual. Those who should fight would fight, and those who should fight for opportunities would fight for opportunities. It was more lively than the new year. When he appeared, they stopped fighting and fighting for opportunities. They all retreated into the stronghold. If there was a peace prize in the world of martial arts, it would definitely be awarded to Jun Changshao. After all, this was a realm dominated by fighting. Because of his arrival, there were no more arguments, let alone fights. It could be said that it was a peaceful scene. One would rather offend the king of hell than the stronghold. On the battlefield of the dimensions, one would rather offend the king of hell than Go Sheng. Why is he here again? After Mo Shangsheng received the news, his expression was very interesting. Openly rebelling against the upper realm on the battlefield of dimensions would definitely be sentenced to death. It was a wise move to escape after enduring the lightning punishment, but he came back not long after. Was he not afraid? Smack! Mo Shangsheng slapped his forehead and said in realization, I forgot. Madame June is still on the battlefield. He should be here to visit this time. He had openly defied the heavens, yet he still dared to come in. Grandmaster June's love for his wife was definitely true love. Speaking of Queen Rose, it had to be said that the Soul Clan continent had been living quite comfortably on the battlefield recently. As long as they appeared, all the warriors would avoid them. Hello, Madame June, goodbye, Madame June. When the experts who knew how to deal with matters saw Queen Rose, they were all very polite before leaving. In the past, the Spiritus continent was jointly attacked by the various major planes. Ever since the identity of Jun Changshao's wife was exposed, it was immediately listed as one of the most untouchable places. In fact, as long as the Rose Queen hurried over, she would immediately leave with the people from the other planes without a second thought. It was as good as giving up the opportunity. Speaking of which, Jun Changshao cheated by using a treasure detector. Almost all the opportunities in the battlefield had been dug out. Later on, when the upper realms sealed off the Falling Star continent's stronghold and disqualified it, they had to replenish it again. The contribution points and fortuitous opportunities within the battlefield were the driving forces that stimulated the cultivators from other planes to come here. Naturally, they couldn't be interrupted. Otherwise, there would be no meaning to their existence. Because they had just been added, the frequency of fortuitous opportunities appearing was relatively high. Moreover, no one was competing with the Spiritus, so the development of the stronghold was very fast. At the Starfall continent stronghold, Jun Changshao stood on the main peak with a displeased look on his face. When they first came in, the stronghold's barrier was broken by Cui Hua, but it was repaired. The upper realm. Jun Changshao raised his head and looked up at the sky. He said angrily in his heart, sooner or later, I'll go up there and stomp all of you under my feet. He had already done things that cut down the heavens, so he didn't mind doing things that went against the heavens again. Moreover, creating a battlefield where slaughter reigned supreme and treating all mortal beings like dirt was not the will of the heavens at all. So what if he went against it? Because he had been punished and sanctioned, the seed of hatred had been planted in Jun Changshao's heart. Master. Within the grand hall, the hunchbacked old man said, Jun Changshao has illegally entered the planar battlefield again. What a troublemaker, Empress Lingyao, who was shrouded in clouds, said. The hunchbacked old man said, if the realm hall finds out, they'll probably punish him again. They won't. Empress Lingyao denied. The previous punishment will offset all of his crimes. This time, he was only illegally entering. He won't be punished a second time. I hope that kid knows his place and doesn't challenge the rules set down by the upper realm. The hunchbacked old man suddenly stopped talking. Because Jun Changshao, who was in the planar battlefield, had already ordered Cuehua to bite down on the outpost once more. I'm actually freaking thinking that this guy will know his place. Am I crazy? Was my head kicked by a donkey? Outside the outpost of the Lingyuan continent, Lu Qianqian, Li Qingyang, and the other core disciples formed groups of 10 and set up the four corners heaven and earth formation. Old Ko Jun Changshao, who was sitting in the distance, took a sip of tea. Can we begin? Yes. Ku Jinan replied. But in his heart, he wasn't so sure. The formation set up by the disciples of the sect of all times exuded a powerful aura. It was obviously no small matter. The Xian class experts he had sent might not be able to handle it. Just as he had expected. After the sparring began and the battle was over, the experts of the Lingyuan continent all lay on the ground, exhausted. Amazing, amazing. Ku Jinan said sincerely. 10 disciples of the sect of all times at Wu Huang's level were able to exhaust the high-level Xian class experts he had sent with just a formation. It was truly unbelievable. Go Xing smiled. The four corners heaven and earth formation was indeed powerful. 10 disciples of Wu Huang could definitely fight against a half-step Wu Sheng. 50,000 contribution points. Was it worth it? The system said. Worth it. Jun Changshao said, more than worth it. The system continued to show off its marketing skills. So, if you want to become stronger, you have to rely on the system. City Lord. In the main hall of the Nine Heavens Continent outpost, a subordinate cupped his hands and said, Jun Patriarch sent a letter. Oh? Mo Shangsheng took the letter in surprise. After opening it, he saw the words, Jun Patriarch has set up an arena outside the Starfall Continent outpost. He asked City Lord Mo to bring experts to support him. Arena? What's going on? The vast continent, Saros continent, and other realms were also confused. Because they had also received Jun Changshao's letter, and the content was exactly the same as City Lord Mo's. Palace Lord, are we going? Can we not go? Instantly, all the big shots of the realms who had received the letter brought their experts to the Starfall Continent outpost. When they arrived, they saw a large arena outside the barrier. Jun Changshao sat on it and drank tea. A group of disciples lined up below the arena with their hands behind their backs and their heads held high. On the left side of the arena were the words, I hold my blade and laugh at the sky. On the right side of the arena were the words, go and stay Kunlun. The words were written horizontally, firm and unyielding. Wasn't this the life and death arena that the God-slaying palace and dozens of evil sects in Huayang County ordered their disciples to build at the foot of the mountain? The powerful cultivators from the various planes who had rushed over saw the stage and the flamboyant words written on it. All of them muttered in their hearts. What is Sect Lord Jun trying to do? Everyone. Jun Changshao stood up and said in a clear voice, today, I'll set up an arena here. I'll use 10 yellow-grade disciples to challenge a profound-grade powerhouse. If my side loses, I'm willing to offer 100,000 spirit stones. The experts of various realms were all surprised. How could 10 yellow-class disciples defeat a black-class expert? Did Jun Patriarch have so many spirit stones that he had nowhere to spend them? Of course. Jun Changshao continued, if you lose, you have to pay 10,000 spirit stones to Jun Patriarch. Chapter 1197. When the disciples of the sect of all times fought with the martial artists of the Lingyuan continent, it was considered sparring. It was very difficult to unleash the full potential of the four corners heaven and earth formation. Therefore, Jun Changshao thought of a way. He decided to set up an arena and invite the powerhouses of the various dimensions to challenge him. Whoever won would be given 500,000 spirit stones, and whoever lost would be given 10,000 spirit stones. 500,000 versus 10,000. This was definitely a losing deal. There was no other way. Jun Changshao also wanted to bring his disciples around the battlefield to fight, but they were all afraid of him and refused to come out. He had no choice but to use this method. Moreover, setting up the 9 heavens moon-embracing great array consumed tens of millions of natural spirit stones. It was not easy to come to the battlefield this time. He had to think of a way to recoup his losses, right? Excuse me. The system said, how difficult is it for the host to come to the battlefield? You just want to make some money. Don't use the disciples' actual combat as an excuse. The powerhouses of the various dimensions fell silent. 500,000 spirit stones for the winner and only 10,000 spirit stones for the loser. This was definitely a good deal. It was definitely suitable for a gamble. Jun Patriarch. A powerhouse said, what do you think of the quality of 500,000 spirit stones? This question was on everyone's mind. There were differences in quality of spirit stones. If the quality was poor, 500,000 spirit stones might not be able to compare to 10,000 spirit stones. Smack! Jun Changshao snapped his fingers. Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji walked out and poured all the shiny spirit stones on the ground. Instantly, they piled up into a small mountain. The martial artists from the various dimensions widened their eyes and exclaimed, the 9 heavens continents hexagram stone. The corner of Imo Shangxing's mouth twitched. Jun Patriarch, you're using my dimension's high-level spirit stones as a wager. This is too much. Everyone. Jun Changshao said in a clear voice, whoever defeats my disciple can take away 500,000 hexagram stones. As soon as he said this, the powerhouses of the various dimensions' eyes shone with a scorching light. There were many types of spirit stones in the mortal dimension. It was not that there were no higher-level spirit stones, but in the battlefield, the hexagram stone was undoubtedly one of the most powerful series. In the face of such temptation, who could resist it? Fight! They had to fight. Jun Patriarch. A Xian-labeled martial artist said loudly, I'm willing to experience the strength of your esteemed Sect's disciples. If he won, he would be able to obtain 500,000 hexagram stones, and he would not have to worry about resources anymore. If he lost, he would only lose 10,000 spiritual stones. It was definitely worth the gamble. Furthermore, most of the Sect of all time's disciples standing near the ring were only at the middle tier, except for a few who were at the peak of the yellow tier. Not to mention 1 against 10, even 50 wouldn't be a problem. Please come to the stage. Jun Changshao cupped his fists and said. Shwa! That dark label martial artist jumped up. Damn it, he beat me to it. The cultivators from the other planes who were eager to give it a try now had a trace of regret in their eyes. After all, this was the same as giving away spirit stones for free. They actually didn't step forward immediately. Everyone, don't panic. Jun Changshao said, if this friend wins, the arena battle will continue. Whoever wins will receive 500,000 hexagram stones. All right. The regret in everyone's eyes was replaced by passion once again. Mo Shangxing's expression was very interesting. No. Jun Patriarch was definitely not someone who was kicked in the head by a donkey. If he dared to play so crazily, then he must have absolute confidence. City Lord Mo, who had never lost his IQ, began to think seriously. However, the more he thought, the more he broke down. The more he thought, the more he felt that this guy was not kicked in the head by a donkey. Although there were more than 300 Sect of all time's disciples with excellent aptitude, most of them were very ordinary. It was impossible for 10 of them to fight against one dark label. It was really illogical. Let's fight. At this moment, Jun Changshao jumped down from the ring and waved his hand. Shwa! 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 10 Sect of all time's disciples flew up and cupped their fists at the Xian-labeled martial artist. Mo Shangxing broke down even more. The disciples that June Patriarch sent out were all at the mid-tier of the yellow label. Without a core disciple with excellent aptitude to lead them, wasn't it the same as giving away spirit stones for free to fight against a genuine Shen-labeled martial artist? Thinking about how he exchanged the six-pointed star stone with that guy but gave it away for free, City Lord Emo immediately clutched his chest and showed a pained expression. It was already like this. He would send his subordinates up first and take back as much as he could. On the ring, the 10 Sect of all times disciples were waiting solemnly. After Jun Changshao said, "Start," they quickly separated and surrounded the Shen-labeled martial artist. Huff huff. Huff huff huff. Waves of air that seemed to come from ancient times spread out. A light barrier that seemed to have materialized instantly appeared. Array? Mo Shangsheng suddenly realized. No wonder June Patriarch wanted to send low-tier disciples to fight against high-level martial artists. It turned out that the disciples had cultivated a combination array. The Nine Heavens continent also had a similar array. Once it was used, the power formed was much stronger than that of an individual. However, could 10 mid-tier yellow label martial artists rely on this combination array to defeat a high-level Shen-labeled martial artist? It shouldn't be possible, right? Mo Shangsheng thought that even if the Sect of all times disciples had the support of the array, it was already impressive enough to defeat a peak yellow label martial artist. It was a bit of a fantasy to think that they could surpass a major realm. However, in a short 10 minutes, the 10 disciples removed the 4 directions heaven and earth array. The Shen-labeled martial artist who gambled for resources collapsed on the ring. We lost. Mo Shangsheng stared and said, "We actually lost. Thank you for letting us win." Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said, "Please go to the counter at the side to pay 10,000 spirit stones." The Shen-labeled martial artist stood up with difficulty and obediently took out the spirit stones. In terms of quality, it was obviously higher than the natural spirit stones of the falling star continent. Who else wants to fight? Me. A stronger Shen-labeled martial artist jumped onto the ring. After Jun Changshao briefly analyzed the martial artist's strength, he ordered Li Tian to lead 9 disciples to fight and then defeat them, earning another 10,000 spirit stones. No way. What kind of array did they use? It can actually defeat a high-level martial artist with a lower realm? Everyone was a little dumbfounded. I'll do it. I'll do it. A small mountain of 500,000 six-pointed star stones shone brightly in front of them, forcing the Shen-labeled martial artists to go onto the ring. They were defeated time and time again and had to hand over their spirit stones. It only took 4 to 5 hours. There were as many as 100 martial artists from different planes who challenged the array. In the end, all of them were defeated without exception, allowing Jun Changshao to obtain 1,000,000 spirit stones. The quality of the spirit stones from other planes was higher than the natural spirit stones of the falling star continent. Therefore, strictly speaking, it was equivalent to 3 to 5 million spirit stones. Didn't I earn it back? Jun Changshao was delighted. Setting up an arena on the battlefield not only allowed the disciples to better familiarize themselves with the 4 directions heaven and earth array, but also to obtain high-quality spirit stones to make up for the deficit of building the 9 stars moon catcher array. It was definitely killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Of course. The powerhouses of the various planes were not fools. After none of the Shen-labeled martial artists won, they realized that the array used by the disciples of the Sect of all times had the ability to fight above their level. Thus, they all shifted their gazes away from the mountain of 6-pointed star stones. 500,000 high-grade spirit stones was indeed very attractive, but they could only see it and not obtain it. Moreover, they had to pay 10,000 spirit stones for it. They definitely could not go up. The current situation was that no one dared to challenge it. Alright. They could only go with the next plan. Jun Changshao said loudly, "Everyone, this challenge is not limited to the Shen-labeled martial artists. The Earth-labeled martial artists can also go up. The winner will give me 1,000,000 six-pointed star stones, and the loser will give me 100,000 spirit stones." Really? The eyes of the Earth-labeled martial artists lit up. Jun Changshao said, "The rules will definitely have to be changed. We will send 50 to 200 yellow-labeled disciples to fight the Earth-labeled martial artists." 50. Mo Shangsheng almost fell to the ground. It was undeniable that the strength displayed by the 10 disciples of the sect of all times in the 100 battles just now had surprised him. But now, they were going to fight the Earth-labeled martial artists who were 2 levels below them with the same level. Not to mention 50 or 200, even if they had several times their number, they would still not be able to win. Still, Jun Patriarch had absolute confidence that he could let a small number of yellow-labeled disciples defeat the Earth-labeled martial artists using arrays. Isn't this too nonsensical? Another few hours passed. City Lord Mo stood unsteadily on the spot, the expression on his face brilliant beyond compare. Because more than 10 Earth-labeled martial artists had gone up one after another, and the result was that they had all been defeated. What he found most difficult to accept was that in the battle that had just ended, an Earth-labeled martial artist had actually been defeated by 50 disciples of the sect of all times. "Thank you for letting me win." Li Qingyang, who was standing on the stage, clasped his hands and said. Beside him were Lu Qianshan, Su Xiaoma, Xiao Ziji, Yi Xingchen, He Wudi, Li Fei, Tian Qi, Long Xiang, Song Xianzhou, Ling Yuanxue, Mu Honglian, and the others. No wonder they had lost. These 50 martial artists were all core disciples of the sect of all times. Chapter 1198. Lu Qianshan, Li Qingyang, and the others were the core disciples of the sect of all times. Their aptitude and cultivation were not bad, so Jun Changshao felt that it was a bit of a waste of talent for not sending them out to fight against the Dark Marquis. They had to fight against the higher-level Earth Marquis. The results did not disappoint Gou Sheng. Li Qingyang and the others fought more than 10 battles in a row. The number of people who fought was determined by the strength of their opponents. In the end, they won beautifully and earned him another 1,000,000 spirit stones. They had even managed to defeat a martial saint-level powerhouse with only 50 of them. This deeply shocked the powerhouses of this plane. There was a difference of 2 levels. A mere 50 yellow-grade powerhouses defeated an earth-grade powerhouse. This was too unreal. However, when the crowd looked at the disciples who were standing in all kinds of postures on the stage and felt the fierce aura they released, they felt that it was natural for them to win. Jun Patriarch's disciples are all dragons among men. Mo Shangsheng gave an extremely high evaluation. Admiration rose in his eyes. It was normal for the sect to have amazing disciples. If there was a group of amazing disciples, it was simply too terrifying. In his eyes, Lu Qianshan, Li Qingyang, and the others were all worth the effort of a certain faction to nurture. At that moment, Mo Shangsheng could completely imagine that once these sect of all times disciples increased their cultivation level in the future, they would definitely be a group of monsters that would cause people to tremble in fear at the mere mention of their name. More importantly, those who nurtured a group of monsters were also super monsters themselves. Terrifying. The more Mo Shangsheng thought about it, the more shocked he became. Jun Changshao did not know that he was crazily imagining the future. Instead, he smiled and said, "Is there anyone else coming up?" The powerhouses of the various planes fell silent. After more than 10 battles, they already understood that the sect of all times relied on a special array to fight with higher-level martial artists with the smallest number of people and the lowest level of cultivation. If they went up, they would just be giving away money. It was only now that the various cultivators truly understood that the reason Jun Changshao dared to make such a losing deal was because he had absolute confidence in himself. If we want to win a large amount of spirit stones from him, our heads must have been kicked by a donkey. If it had been in the past, after being blackmailed by Jun Changshao, the cultivators would have been both pained and angry. But now, they were thoroughly convinced of their loss. After all, Jun Changshao hadn't used any forceful methods, and a low-level disciple had defeated them fair and square. This was the brilliance of Gou Sheng. They had clearly set up an arena to make up for the 9 stars moon enclosing great array, but in the end, none of the martial artists who lost had any complaints. Since ancient times, true feelings could not keep people. Only tricks could win people's hearts. Since no one is coming up to the stage, the battle is over. Everyone, disperse. After the Xian and Earth battles, he had obtained more than 2 million high-quality spirit stones. This was enough to make up for his previous losses. Therefore, Jun Changshao had the idea of returning to his sect. Moreover, after so many battles, the disciples had not lost even once. Who would be so foolish as to come up and give away money? Jun Patriarch. Mo Shangsheng cupped his fists and said, "Farewell. Farewell. Farewell." Jun Changshao cupped his fists one by one. However, just as he was about to lead the disciples into the falling star continent's stronghold, a gentle voice came from behind. "Wait a moment." Whoosh! Whoosh! The various cultivators who were about to leave all stopped and looked into the distance. They saw the beautiful and noble Rose Queen walking over with a group of soul race subordinates. Jun Changshao's expression became interesting. He didn't turn around, nor did he use his spiritual thoughts. Just from the voice, he knew who it was. He forgot. This woman was also in the planar battlefield. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the other disciples all turned to look. Third senior brother. Li Fei whispered, "This woman's aura is so strong." Su Xiaoma rubbed his chin and said, "She should have an extremely high status." Senior sister. Ling Yuanxua transmitted, "She's so beautiful." It was said that men cared about women. In fact, women cared about women too. Especially someone as beautiful and noble as Rose Queen. Lu Qianqian didn't say anything. Her face and eyes were as cold as ice as usual. Many disciples were paying attention to Rose Queen's appearance and aura. Only He Wudi and Yixingchen cared about the invisible powerful aura she emitted. They concluded that this woman's strength was extraordinary. Whoosh! Whoosh! The various cultivators, including Mo Shangsheng, all made way. The Sect of All Time's disciples instantly realized that this woman must have an extraordinary status on the battlefield. As expected. When she walked over, the various cultivators all cupped their fists and said, "Madame Jun, Madame Jun." She had the same surname as the patriarch. Thud. Rose Queen stopped in front of the arena and looked at Jun Changshao, whose back was still facing her. She said in a slightly resentful tone, "Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" Li Qingyang, Su Xiaoma, and the others were stunned. She was exuding a superior aura just now. How did she become so friendly when talking to the patriarch? Mo Shangsheng and the others were also muttering in their hearts. Rose Queen was Jun Changshao's wife, which was equivalent to the patriarch's wife. Why didn't the disciples salute her when they saw her? Strange. Too strange. Jun Changshao's back was still facing her. He said calmly, "Why should I inform you? Where's my sword?" The system said, "I'm going to cut this destined to forever alone." Jun Changshao's indifferent attitude made Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others realize that the patriarch must have a grudge against her, so they all became vigilant. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh. In an instant, the atmosphere became solemn. Rose Queen glanced at the disciples of the Sect of All Times who were on guard. She said, "Are these your disciples? They seem to have some misunderstanding about me. Let's go." Jun Changshao said calmly. After that, he walked towards the stronghold. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others followed closely behind, but they still maintained a high level of vigilance towards that woman. Mo Shangsheng and the others muttered to themselves again. From the conversation between the couple, their relationship seemed to be a little tense. Could it be that they had quarreled? Could it be that they were having a cold war? No wonder the disciples of the Sect of All Times did not salute the patriarch's wife when they saw her. After all, if there was a conflict between the two, they would definitely lean towards the patriarch. Jun Changshao. Rose Queen said angrily, "When are you going to run away?" Jun Changshao pretended not to hear and continued to walk towards the stronghold. With so many core disciples present, if they knew that he and this woman were husband and wife, his reputation would be ruined. Go! Go quickly! Seeing that guy gradually walk away from her, Rose Queen bit her lips, her eyes filled with resentment. Ahem! At that moment, Mo Shangsheng walked out to smooth things over and said, June Patriarch, as the saying goes, a quarrel at the head of the bed will end at the end of the bed. There's no need for a husband and wife to brood over a small conflict. Li Qingyang and the others stood rooted to the ground, their expressions blank. A quarrel at the head of the bed will end at the end of the bed? A husband and wife? That's right. One of the big shots from the other dimension advised, June Patriarch and Madame June are husband and wife and are destined to spend the rest of their lives together. They can't treat each other as enemies just because of a small conflict in their lives. The disciples of the sect of all times looked at June Changshao with interesting expressions. They were not fools. From the words of the various powerhouses, they had already analyzed that this woman and the patriarch were husband and wife. As for Madame June, it was not because they shared the same surname, but a polite way of addressing the man's spouse. Patriarch. Su Xiaoma could not help but exclaim, when did you have a wife? Chapter 1199. Plop. Below the ring, Su Xiaoma fell down with a big bump on his head. Then his eyelids rolled up and white foam came out of his mouth. He looked very miserable. All the disciples lowered their heads and mourned for their third senior brother. However, this woman with both beauty and temperament turned out to be the patriarch's wife. It was too unexpected. If Elder Wei, who was eating in the cafeteria, knew about this, he would definitely spit out everything on the spot. With the patriarch's hopeless EQ, he married a beautiful wife. It was simply. He really saw a ghost. Oh my God! Ling Yuanxue covered her mouth and said in surprise, when did the patriarch get married? Mu Honglian was also very surprised. The patriarch only cared about managing the sect. He had never heard of any love affairs outside. How could a wife suddenly jump out? The female disciples had their own thoughts, and the male disciples had their own thoughts. For example, Li Fei and Tian Qi, after a short moment of confusion, they all secretly said, this woman is the patriarch's wife. Isn't she, the patriarch's wife? Should I salute? Waiting online. Urgent. Schwa. At this moment, June Changshao turned around and pointed to Mo Shangsheng and the big shot who just talked too much. He said in a deep voice, June Changshao's reputation is ruined by the two of you today. Yes. He and the Rose Queen were married and had the title of husband and wife. But how could this matter be known to the disciples? After all, it was related to the tall and mighty image of the sect master. Now it was all right. The two guys echoed each other, and all the disciples understood what they meant. Mo Shangsheng and the nameless big shot had a black face. We just came forward to persuade you and your wife based on the principle of, it's better to destroy 10 temples than to destroy a marriage. Why are you holding a grudge? Careless, careless. Mo Shangsheng said regretfully, I only wanted to persuade the two to get back together. I completely ignored the fact that a patriarch needs face in this kind of situation. June Patriarch. He hurriedly said, you and Madame June are family. If you have any conflicts, you can resolve them privately. I shouldn't. Boom. Before he could finish, Mo Shangsheng unlocked his new form and flew into the sky, turning into the brightest star in the sky. June Changshao clenched his fists and looked at the nameless big shot. Gulp. The man swallowed a mouthful of saliva and hurriedly said, June Patriarch, as the saying goes, even an upright official finds it difficult to resolve a family dispute. I also, boom. Another shining star appeared in the sky. After knocking away the two helpers, June Changshao turned around and said coldly, get lost. Swoosh. Whoosh. The experts from other dimensions fully displayed their martial arts techniques, movement techniques, reincarnation speed, and other things. In just a short while, there was no one left in the arena. This was the demeanor of an expert. TFFF. TFFF. Below the ring, Su Xiaomo's eyelids were still rolling, and he was foaming at the mouth. The surrounding atmosphere was very oppressive. Patriarch, Li Qingyang mustered up his courage and sent a voice transmission, "Is this, really, your wife?" Many disciples also wanted to ask, but because of Su Xiaomo's example, no one dared to speak. Only second senior brother, who had always been calm, dared to open his mouth. "Husband." At this moment, Rose Queen spoke, "Your disciple doesn't seem to know that we have already gotten married in the Soul Race continent, right?" Li Fei, Tian Qi, and the others were enlightened. It turned out that the patriarch had sneaked into the Soul Race continent and not only brought back a lot of resources, but he also took a wife. No wonder he was a little absent-minded at that time. No wonder he went there every few days. Needless to say, Jun Changshao had gone to the Soul Race continent more than once or twice. Although the disciples didn't know what he went there for, they all saw it with their own eyes. At first, they didn't think much of it. But now that the woman said that they got married in the Soul Race continent, it really made people's imagination run wild. "We can't hide it." The system said, "It's better to admit it to the disciples." Besides, with the host's appearance and identity, not to mention having a wife, even if you have 3,000 beauties, it's normal. No one will laugh at you. Although Mo Shangsheng and the nameless big boss were sent flying, the real assistant king was still in the body, even making Jun Changshao helpless. Where's my saber, where's my saber? Gou Sheng's mentality collapsed. In the end, he angrily roared, "Yes, we got married in the Soul Race continent, but, Shua! Shua!" Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others bowed together and said loudly, "Disciple greets the patriarch's wife." Their voices were loud and clear, rippling the sky. After Mo Shangsheng, who had just landed, heard it, he rubbed his chest and stood up from the pit, saying, "It seems that they have reconciled. Sigh, I really meddled in other people's business." Thinking of the way Jun Changshao looked at him before, he couldn't help but shudder, secretly saying, "Will this guy come to extort me?" Returning to the Starfall continent's stronghold. Hearing the words, "Disciple greets the patriarch's wife," Jun Changshao was so angry that he almost vomited blood on the spot. "How the hell did I raise a bunch of lunatics? You are all my husband's disciples?" Rose Queen smiled and said, "Yes." Li Qingyang and the others said loudly. The patriarch's wife was the patriarch's wife. As disciples, they had to show enough respect. Rose Queen and Jun Changshao's disciples met for the first time, so naturally, they didn't have a greeting gift. So, she waved her hand lightly, and 1,000 high-grade spirit stones floated in front of each of them, saying, "Following my husband has made you suffer. Take these resources. Thank you, Madam Patriarch's wife, for the reward." Xiao Ziji, Li Fei, and the others unceremoniously put the spirit stones into their space rings, secretly saying, "She is indeed the Patriarch's wife, so fastidious." Jun Changshao, who had the urge to vomit blood, saw that Rose Queen had given his disciples so many high-grade spirit stones, all of which were extorted from the vast continent. He sneered in his heart and said, "This woman is really stupid." The system secretly muttered, "I think the host is stupid." She took the spirit stones to leave a good impression on the disciples. She can't deny her identity as the Patriarch's wife. However, even the most stable Li Qingyang accepted the spirit stones, only Lu Qianqian turned a blind eye to the resources in front of her. "Why don't you accept it?" Rose Queen looked over curiously. She had noticed this woman who seemed to be shrouded in frost when she came. In terms of appearance, Ling Yuanxue and Mu Honglian were not bad, but Lu Qianqian easily became the focus of the disciples because she cultivated the ice element. "Not interested." Lu Qianqian said lightly and waved her hand to push away the spirit stones in front of her. There was no fluctuation of emotion between her eyebrows. Rose Queen smiled and said, "You are dressed differently from them. Are you not a disciple?" "But..." She looked at Jun Changshao and said, "My husband once mentioned a lover in the falling star continent?" Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others suddenly widened their eyes. Oh my god. These words were a bit valiant. Bullshit. Jun Changshao roared, "I didn't say that." Lu Qianqian frowned, and there was a trace of coldness in her clear eyes. Rose Queen gently raised her head, and the supreme aura of a king burst out, with a smile on her face. Whoosh whoosh. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The two women looked at each other, and the cold and strange aura instantly filled the entire arena. Terrible. Too terrible. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others shivered, and their scalps were about to explode under the long gaze of the two women. The calmest was Su Xiaoma, because the whole chapter, from the beginning to the end, still made people feel heartache and lie on the ground, foaming at the mouth. Chapter 1200. Back in the Soul Continent, in order to get rid of Queen Rose, Jun Changshao said that he had 3,600 rooms, including her. The system had once ridiculed him for his boasting. Today, when Queen Rose saw Lu Qianqian, who was dressed differently from the other disciples and had a beautiful appearance, she easily thought that she was one of her husband's lovers. Li Qingyang and the others were silent. The atmosphere around them and the two women staring at each other for a long time, although it was not in the category of martial arts, why did it feel so scary? How could Su Xiaoma be a spy? He was smart. When he realized that the situation was wrong, he immediately lay on the ground and forced himself to foam. Jun Changshao's expression was very ugly. He came to the battlefield to cultivate his disciples' understanding of formations and earn some spirit stones to make up for the deficit. Why did the situation suddenly change? Cough, cough. The system complained, "This is the rhythm of a fire in the backyard. Get lost." Jun Changshao was annoyed. Just as he was about to explain to his disciples that there was a reason for his marriage with Queen Rose, he saw Lu Qianqian turn around and walk toward the falling star continent's stronghold. Eldest senior sister left just like that? Everyone was stunned. The cold aura in the air just now had already made them start to imagine the scene of the two women about to fight. What are you waiting for? Jun Changshao scolded, "All of you, return to the sect." Yes. Li Qingyang and the others got up and went to the falling star continent's stronghold. After watching them leave, Queen Rose smiled and said, "Your disciples have good aptitudes and strength." Rows of flowers. Jun Changshao said angrily, "Stop pestering me. That cold woman is not bad looking." "My husband has a good eye for choosing a lover," Queen Rose said with a smile. Jun Changshao roared, "That's my eldest disciple." Eldest disciple? Queen Rose was rather surprised. Aren't teacher-student relationships the most taboo in a plane like the Starfall continent? Having fought in the various major planes for a long time, he had a good understanding of the human race. The relationship between a teacher and a student was often the most unacceptable to the people of the world. In fact, it was even against common sense. If my husband dares to do this, it means that he is not a person who will stick to the rules. Rose Queen smiled and said, "He will definitely achieve great things in the future." Jun Changshao roared, "She's not my lover, she's just my disciple." "Husband, you don't have to explain yourself in such a flustered manner." "Actually, I don't care how many lovers you have," Rose Queen said. Jun Changshao was about to vomit blood. "This is the truth, okay? Why is it that the more I explain, the more I try to cover it up? Li Fei. This seat is extremely uncomfortable." Li Fei, Li Qingyang, and Li Tian were not here. If the host could resist the temptation of the mission, then none of this would have happened. "So, in the end, you reap what you sow," the system said sharply. Jun Changshao felt a sharp pain in his heart. He chose to marry Rose Queen because he wanted to become the regent. However, he only wanted to run away after the mission was completed. Who would have thought that this woman would stick to him? "I just wanted to see you. Now that I have seen you, I don't care anymore. The stronghold still needs to be developed. I will leave first. Rose Queen left with her subordinates. She left as soon as she said she would, never looking back. This was a very career-minded woman. She knew that she came to the battlefield for a mission, so she would not be unable to extricate herself because of emotional problems. First disciple. On the way, Rose Queen thought to herself, is it really that simple? Puff puff puff. Below the arena, Su Xiaomao was still foaming at the mouth. His mouth was already numb. Jun Changshao said in annoyance, stand up for this seat. Swish. Su Xiaomao instantly stood up from the state of playing dead and said with a blank face, who am I? Where am I? Where is this place? Ouch! Ouch, ouch, ouch! Jun Changshao grabbed Su Xiaomao's ear and walked into the stronghold angrily. He used the portal to return to the falling star continent. The joy of setting up the arena and earning millions of spirit stones instantly became extremely irritated because of Rose Queen's appearance. After returning to the sect, he locked himself in his room. Puff! In the medical hall, Elder Wei spat out the tea in his mouth and said, how did you know? Su Xiaomao was surprised. Judging from Elder Wei's words, could it be that he already knew? After returning to the sect, this guy came to the medical hall immediately to see how the patriarch would react when he learned that he had a wife. However, Su Xiaomao did not know that Jun Changshao had returned from the Soul Continent and told Elder Wei about the marriage. Where is the patriarch? He locked himself in his room and never came out. Sigh. Elder Wei shook his head and said, indecisiveness will lead to trouble. He had already reminded Jun Changshao that they were all adults and should talk things out and part on good terms. However, from the current situation, it seemed that he was falling deeper and deeper. When it came to the relationship between a man and a woman, even an experienced strongest king like himself had suffered greatly, let alone the sect master who had an extremely low EQ. The news of Jun Changshao and Rose Queen's marriage was known by several hundred disciples. After he returned, he locked himself up and didn't tell them not to spread the news. Thus, in just a day, the entire sect knew about it. Earthquake. It was definitely a huge earthquake. It's hard to imagine that the patriarch actually got married in secret. Senior brother, is our patriarch's wife beautiful? The disciples' gossipy hearts burned fiercely. They were not in the mood to cultivate for the time being. Especially Lu Wancher and Yao Menjiang. From breakfast to dinner, they were still unhappy because they could not go to the planar battlefield and see the patriarch's wife with their own eyes. Jun Changshao's relationship problems became the hottest topic in the sect. After all, he was the leader of a sect and the leader of a group of followers. Night. Jun Changshao flew and landed in the main hall. The system said, the host is never sloppy when dealing with many things, but he is always hesitant when it comes to relationships. What are you trying to say? Jun Changshao said unhappily. The system said, what I want to say is that there is no perfect person in this world, and the host is no exception. I never had any feelings for the Rose Queen. Jun Changshao said angrily in his heart. The system said, you didn't before, but you do now. It was hidden in Jun Changshao's body and could see his thoughts. Indeed, they did not have any feelings in the beginning. Even when they got married, it was just for the sake of the mission. However, in the subsequent contact, they first joined forces to fight against the handsome man, then fought against the upper realm's sanctions together. Not to mention that they developed feelings during this period, they should have developed some revolutionary friendship. With the host's previous personality, you could have explained it clearly in front of me. Why didn't you do so? Since you have no feelings for the Rose Queen, why did you protect her when she was being punished by the Thunder Calamity? Wouldn't all your troubles be gone if she died? She's right. You've been running away from the deepest thoughts in your heart, and deliberately pretending to be an emotionless killer. Jun Changshao remained silent the entire time. I'm done. The system said, I hope the host can also face his own heart. Chapter 1201. Jun Changshao laid in the main hall for the whole night and thought about many things. In the end, he suppressed all the messy things and focused on cultivating and developing the sect. As for Rose Queen, I won't go to the battlefield in the future. If the big shots knew about this, they would be so happy that they would set off firecrackers to celebrate. The next day, Jun Changshao came to the mission pavilion and instructed the disciples to complete the missions as soon as possible so that they could increase the sect's level and increase the number of members and contribution points. Maybe it was to continue escaping. He tried his best to turn himself into a workaholic. He visited all the halls and made arrangements one after another. This, Tao Yuan was a little confused. The patriarch came to the battle cavalry hall and ordered the members to pay more attention to hygiene. It was a little too strange. Xueren Gui said, since it's an order, hurry up and carry it out. Yes. Therefore, on the same day, a large number of battle cavalry hall members took brooms and started cleaning. Soon, the battle cavalry peak was clean. The medical hall and drizzle hall didn't stay idle either. They all took action to clean up. The most miserable one was the Spirit Beast Hall. Hall leader Z brought Elder Nyo and the others to pick up the beast feces in the Iron Bone Mountain according to the Patriarch's instructions. Damn! Who pooped this? It stinks! King! You stepped on it. Pass down the order. Whoever dares to urinate anywhere in the mountain will be deducted all the beast cores that they should give every month. Dusk came. Under the efforts of all the halls, the sect of all times looked brand new. Of course. The disciples didn't dare to talk about the patriarch's wife in private because the patriarch had ordered that anyone who disobeyed would be punished in the discipline hall. Strange. Li Qingyang didn't understand. Why haven't I seen senior sister? After returning from the battlefield, senior sister entered the Ninth Heaven Mystery Realm alone, Li Tian said. Ninth Heaven Mystery Realm, Ice Layer Sky. In the snowy world, Lu Qianshan stood on the ice mountain like a proud plum in winter. She had spent most of her time in this world where the ice attribute was extremely strong, and her understanding of the ice attribute had deepened. Grand Elder, I've already comprehended the 6th level of Taishuan's Ice Heart technique, but why is it still difficult for me to achieve a state of mind as still as water? Lu Qianshan's brows showed a trace of confusion and distress. It was one of the 2 divine-level mental cultivation methods from the old man in Taishan. She had been practicing it for a long time. During that time, she had inherited the Ice Emperor's inheritance in Luzhou in the northeast. It should have been easy for her to practice it, but the result was not satisfactory. Every time he was about to touch that realm, he would always fail at the crucial moment. Hey! Suddenly, a shout came from the foot of the mountain. It was unknown when Jun Changshao had appeared in the icy heavens. He was sitting cross-legged on the ice rock. Although he was wearing thin clothes, he was not affected by the cold at all. Lu Qianshan's tone was as cold as ever. Does the patriarch have any orders? Don't misunderstand, Jun Changshao said. Lu Qianshan turned around and looked at him with cold eyes. What misunderstanding? Jun Changshao said rather awkwardly, I didn't say anything outside. Don't be fooled by that woman. Patriarch, you're overthinking. Lu Qianshan said lightly, this disciple didn't overthink and didn't misunderstand. That's good. Jun Changshao jumped down from the ice rock and said, I won't disturb your practice. Oh, right. Before leaving, he turned around and said, if you have time, help your fellow disciples. Among the 2 most unsociable disciples in the sect, Yi Xingchen had already entered the Lingyan pavilion. Only Lu Qianshan did not meet the requirements. There were only 24 places in the Lingyan pavilion, so Jun Changshao hoped that the eldest disciple could enter and obtain the corresponding rewards to improve herself. Although Gosheng strived to be fair and just among the disciples, Lu Qianshan was the first to enter the sect, so he was more or less biased. Li Luoqiu could see it. So when she had nothing to do, she would tease him. Ding! Disciple Yang Yuhua has completed a sect mission and received 50 contribution points and 50 achievement points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 6010070000. Ding! Sect achievement points, 4011070000. After being forbidden to talk about the patriarch's wife, the disciples returned to their usual lives and continued to do sect missions. Almost every once in a while, Jun Changshao would hear a notification sound. There will be an extra 20,000 contribution points after completing all of them, so I have to spend them first. Shwa! He opened the high-level store and continued to browse the items given after the last refresh. This guy had developed a habit. Once he bought something he needed, he would not pay attention to it. When he needed to use his contribution points, he would pull it out and continue to look. The main thing was that he did not dare to look. Almost all of the items in the high-level store were useful and had purchase value. If he could not control this, he would soon declare bankruptcy. Shwa! Suddenly, Jun Changshao jumped up from his chair and said excitedly, "Half-step whooshing pill." That's right. In the last row of the high-level store, the words "half-step whooshing pill formula" were clearly written. Ha ha ha. Ha 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 ha. Almost crazy laughter came out of the study room and immediately resounded throughout the sect of all times. Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji, who were busy, heard it and shook their heads. The patriarch has gone crazy again. Sigh. Elder Wei, who was standing in the herb garden, said helplessly, "If emotional matters are tortured for a long time, it will make people lose their minds." Half-step whooshing pill. As the name implied, it could allow Wu Huang to break through to the peak instantly after taking it. Jun Changshao had the Martial Master Pill, Martial King Pill, and the Surge Talisman that could temporarily increase one's cultivation. Now, he also had the pill to enter the Half-Saint realm. It was really a dragon that could raise several realms in one go. However, it was a little expensive. It required 30,000 contribution points. I have to buy it even if it costs 100,000. Jun Changshao bought it without hesitation and automatically clicked on the elixir pavilion. When he saw the hundreds of herbs listed, the corner of his mouth twitched. There are too many ingredients. Not only did the half-step whooshing pill require a lot of ingredients, but the quality was also very high. Especially the main ingredients, which were more than 10 types of saint grade. It's too far away. Jun Changshao was speechless. It's already good enough to get one set. His previous excitement and high spirits immediately cooled down when he saw the required ingredients. He almost wanted to bang his head against the wall. The half-step whooshing pill was useless to him, but he could give it to his disciples, such as Li Qingyang and Yi Xingchen, who were stuck at the peak of Wu Huang. However, if it couldn't be mass-produced, it would be meaningless. No. Jun Changshao said, "I have to find a way to get the ingredients. You can go to the battlefield and find the 9 heavens continent and other planes to exchange for them." The system suggested. Jun Changshao's expression became interesting. "I already said that I won't go to the plain battlefield. Are these pills here to slap me in the face?" "Right." Jun Changshao's eyes lit up. "I can go to the Starry Sky Fortress. There's an underground black market there. I should be able to buy the ingredients to refine the half-step whooshing pill." The system said, "The fortress master is still looking for the host. Wouldn't you be walking into a trap if you go there?" Chapter 1202. That's where you don't understand. Jun Changshao said, "The more dangerous a place is, the safer it is. Moreover, I can disguise myself and sneak in under an alias. At the same time, I can find out more about the Starry Sky Fortress." "Don't go." The system dissuaded him. "If you're discovered, you'll be in trouble." "That's for sure." Jun Changshao said, "After hearing what you said, I'm 100 times more confident now. The most powerful face-slapping system." Since he said that he would be discovered if he went, he would definitely have a smooth journey and be safe. The system was speechless. My face-slapping function can be used by the host like this? Let's talk about it later. Jun Changshao said in disdain, I've fought against hundreds of super battlefield spirits on the battlefield. Even the upper realm can't do anything to them. Who in the mortal universe can do it? The system asked, if the host doesn't have the support of his wife and the stone statue's power, can you defeat the black and white double ghosts? This, Jun Changshao fell silent. Without relying on various trump cards, he really didn't think that he could defeat the experts from the upper realm who were suppressed. The system said, the two of them should be at the strongest level in the mortal universe. Maybe there are experts of this level in the Starry Sky Fortress. You mean, Jun Changshao said with a serious expression, there might be experts from the upper realm in the Starry Sky Fortress? The system went crazy. What I mean is that there's always someone better than you. You can't underestimate the martial artists from the mortal universe. Why did he bring them up to the upper realm? Alright. The system said, what you said makes sense. Since the black and white double ghosts used a special method to descend, there might be stowaways in the mortal universe. I understand now. Jun Changshao said in realization, it's because there are people from the upper realm in the Starry Sky Fortress that stopped the system from stealing the fifth scroll. The system admired the host's imagination. However, it still roared, I'll say this again. There's no such thing as something that can't be stolen. If you don't believe me, you can try buying it again. What if I can't buy it? I'll eat 50 caddies of rice on the spot. Alright. Jun Changshao said, even if I have to waste 20,000 contribution points, I'll still satisfy your bad taste. Although he said that, he knew that the system was not a human and did not have a physical body, so it could not do it. However, seeing how confident it was, he was a little tempted. The fifth scroll was hidden in the Starry Sky Fortress. He did not know if there were any stronger experts or stowaways inside. Even if he went there, he might not be able to find it. He might as well spend another 20,000 contribution points to buy it again. Furthermore, the power of the 7 profound sunglow break would increase significantly with each additional incomplete scroll. Buying it early and letting the disciples cultivate it early was no different from increasing the strength of the core. Schwa! He opened the purchased items column. Starry Sky Fortress. Guanzhou and the old man were trembling as they knelt in the hall. Master. A black-robed man standing behind him said coldly, their soul origins are incomplete. Every word they say cannot be trusted. The masked man sitting at the head of the table said in a cold voice, I only asked you to gather information. How did you lose your soul origin? Moss. Master, the kneeling Guanzhou and the old man's body and voice were trembling. The masked man said indifferently, their soul origins are controlled by someone else. They should not be telling the truth. Drag them down and lock them in the 9 levels of hell. Hearing the words 9 levels of hell, Guanzhou and the old man were so scared that their faces turned pale. Then, they collapsed on the ground powerlessly. As two people who lived in the fortress all year round, they naturally knew about the 9 levels of hell. That place was hell as its name suggested. Once locked in, no one could come out alive. Moss. Master, Guanzhou and the old man shouted in despair, but they were still dragged down by several black-robed men. One was the master who had nurtured them for many years, while the other was someone who controlled their soul origin. They did not know what to do. Master. The black-robed man standing in the hall said, in my opinion, this matter must be related to the Starry Sky continent. Why don't you let me bring some people over to investigate? The masked man said indifferently, don't disappoint me. On the same day, inside the fortress that was like a sturdy castle, dozens of starships flew out, heading towards the Starry Sky continent. General. On the bow of the ship, an old man asked, Guanzhou and the old man were locked in the 9 levels of hell? That's right. The leader said, they are still in the 2nd level. Hiss. The old man sucked in a breath of cold air and said, the main culprit in the 2nd level of hell is said to be cruel and bloodthirsty. Those two fellows are probably dead. The leader said, "The main culprit in each level of hell, which one of them is easy to deal with?" The old man was silent. He had never been to the 9 levels of hell, but before he became a member of the Starry Sky Fortress, he had heard of this place. It was said that there were 9 different levels of hell cages, and each level of hell had a main culprit who was locked up forever due to various reasons. There were even rumors that the existence of the Starry Sky Fortress was ordered by the upper realm, and its purpose was to lock up the most rebellious, vicious, and evil criminals. The fortress master was equivalent to the prison warden. Of course, this was only a rumor. Because the Starry Sky Fortress had existed for a long time, and the fortress master had changed many times, it was hard to believe that this rumor came from the upper realm. But there was one thing that everyone agreed on. The 9 levels of hell had many powerful experts locked up, and the reason why they were locked up was because they had offended the fortress master. Creak! The huge stone door was gently pushed open, and a trace of light shone through the gap. Caw caw caw. Caw caw caw. Guanzhou and the old man were wearing prison uniforms and anklets as they walked in step by step. Their legs and hands were trembling violently, especially when they felt the gloomy aura inside. Their scalps were about to explode. Creak! The stone door closed again, and a trace of light dissipated. The environment became extremely gloomy, and even more gloomy. Guanzhou and the old man were martial emperors, and in the entire mortal universe, they could be considered as the top experts. But when they were in this place, they were so shocked that their souls left their bodies. Swish! Suddenly, a trace of red light flew in from afar, and hung in the air like a will-o'-the-wisp. They could only see the words "second level of hell," which were formed by the bones of an unknown creature, gradually appearing. Woo woo woo. Woo woo woo. A cold wind blew over, and it sounded like the cries of ghosts and howls of wolves. Guanzhou and the old man were so shocked that they felt a chill down their backs. They subconsciously leaned forward, but suddenly felt something cold, so they hurriedly took a few steps back and turned around. "The two of you." A person with disheveled hair, whose hands and feet were bound by chains, stood in the middle of them. He raised his skinny hands and pushed aside his messy hair, revealing an extremely ferocious face. He smiled and said, "Have you washed your butt clean?" The voice was extremely gloomy, as if it came from the depths of hell. Dang dang dang. Guanzhou and the old man took a few steps back in shock, and when they tried to see the words, "main culprit," carved on the prison uniform, they were shocked and said, "Hua Yen demon." Chapter 1203. Hua Yen Yao. He was a demon that appeared out of nowhere 10,000 years ago. This person was cruel and bloodthirsty. He had destroyed 50 planes in just a few years. His hands were stained with the blood of countless creatures. Later, for some reason, he was captured by the fortress master and locked in the 2nd level of hell. He was given a danger rating of C. The main criminals locked in the 9th level of hell all had danger ratings, which were A, B, C, and D. Among them, D was the last and A was the highest. The danger level was determined by the rating. Of course, ordinary criminals would not be given a danger rating as long as they were not defined as the main criminals, no matter how high their cultivation level was. Guanzhou and the old man had never seen Hua Yenyao before, but they had heard of his deeds and knew that he was locked in the 2nd level of hell. Therefore, when they saw the word "main criminal," they immediately guessed his identity. Finished. We are finished. Ha ha ha. Hua Yenyao laughed strangely. Then, he grabbed the two of them and put his left and right hands on their shoulders. He lowered his voice and said, "Since you know me, you should know my interests, right?" Their legs and stomachs were trembling violently. Every inch of their skin and every hair was trembling. Suddenly, Guanzhou and the old man remembered that when they were chatting with their companions, they talked about this guy and learned that he had a bad hobby. That was, he liked to spank others. Because of this, they even cursed, "He is sick." Who would have thought that they would meet the main criminal locked in the 2nd level of hell today? God! Save us! The old man suppressed his fear and said, Senior. Senior Hua, I know, swoosh! Swoosh! Hui Yenyao pulled the two of them closer. His voice was as gloomy as a demon from hell. He said, if you know, then hurry up. I can't wait any longer. Guanzhou, the old man, in order to live, in order to survive, the two of them chose to compromise with reality after a painful choice. Slap! 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 One slap, two slaps. The crisp sound echoed in the second level of hell. After the prisoners who were hiding in the corner heard it, they were all horrified. They all subconsciously covered their swollen butts. Swoosh! At this moment, the space rippled slightly. Some kind of power suddenly appeared and flew down along the second level of hell. Ha! Hui Yenyao stopped and said in surprise, that power has appeared again. It seems to be even stronger than before. In this layer of hell, he was the only one who had noticed the energy fluctuations. Swish! Soon, the invisible force penetrated the second layer of hell and merged with the third layer of hell. A burly man who was lying on a rocking chair with scars all over his body opened his eyes and said to himself, here we go again. Swish! Swish! The invisible force passed through the fourth layer, the fifth layer, and so on. Whenever it passed through an infernal realm, the powerful beings within would sense it. TSK TSK TSK. In the sixth level of hell, a tall and slender young man opened a folding fan with the words "the most handsome in the mortal world" written on it. He said, there are all kinds of ancient formations in the 9 levels of hell, and there is actually a power that can penetrate them so easily. This is unbelievable. Swish! Swish! The invisible force penetrated through the 7th and 8th layers. After passing through the 9th level, in the area that seemed to be filled with endless darkness, a large eyeball suddenly opened. It was covered in blood vessels, and it let out a low voice. What kind of power is this? At the bottom of the 9 levels of hell, there was a secret room that was sealed by a special array when Jun Changshao bought the 5th remnant scroll. At this moment, the stronghold master was inside and looking at the secret manual that was placed on the stone table. The remnant scroll that the 7 profound saint left behind contains the supreme quintessence. If one could comprehend it slightly, one's cultivation realm would increase by leaps and bounds. However, I have been studying it for hundreds of years. Why haven't I gained anything? Right at this moment, the stronghold master raised his head. A force that was hard to be seen by the naked eye pressed down from above and turned into an invisible hand that grabbed at the 5th remnant scroll. Not good! The stronghold master exclaimed and formed a hand seal as fast as he could, releasing his soul force to reinforce it. The stronghold master's reaction was extremely fast, and the invisible hand's speed was also very fast. Before he could reinforce it with all kinds of seals, the remnant scroll disappeared with a swish. Because it was too domineering, it even brought about an intense backlash. TFFF. The stronghold master's meridians were affected, and he staggered back until he hit the barrier. Blood spurted out, and his face under the mask became extremely pale. He was dumbfounded. He was completely dumbfounded. The force that pressed down just now was much stronger than the first time. Fortunately, the process was very short, and it was so domineering that he didn't have time to suppress it. Otherwise, he might have died on the spot from the backlash. Thinking of this, the stronghold master was so shocked that he broke out in cold sweat. After gradually calming down, he looked at the empty stone table and once again spurted out blood because he couldn't suppress his injuries. This was a remnant scroll that contained a great opportunity and was usually regarded as a treasure. But now, it had been stolen right under their noses. Who the hell could bear it? Ding! The host has spent 20,000 contribution points and obtained the 7 profound Sunglow Remnant Scroll X1. It has been transferred to the interspatial ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 1010070000. When the notification ended, Jun Changxiao's interspatial ring had an additional 7 profound sunglow remnant scroll 5. He immediately beamed with joy. Do you believe me now? The system proudly said, as long as you are serious, there is nothing that you can't buy. Please change from buy to steal, thank you. Jun Changxiao spent the contribution points and copied 100,000 copies of the remnant scroll. He thought to himself, 2 more and I can complete the 7 profound sunglow remnant. This kind of high-quality high-level martial arts technique could only show its value after learning all of them. Creak. The door closed. Yixingchen anxiously took out the 5th copy of the 7 profound sunglow remnant scroll and began to study it seriously. As a former martial emperor, as his realm became higher and higher, he could completely cultivate the martial arts that he had cultivated in his previous life. But now he was particularly fond of the 7 profound sunglow remnant, because every time he learned a book, he would have a completely different understanding, and the power would obviously increase. What moon-slashing explosion? What supreme seal break? It was nothing in front of the 7 profound sunglow remnant. Night Emperor had changed. He became fond of the new and tired of the old. Similarly, He Wudi was also excited. He had already begun to comprehend it. In his previous world, he had fallen into the tragic situation of being hunted down by all kinds of powerhouses just for a fragment of a book. Now that he had come to the mortal plane, he could cultivate a book every now and then. He could cultivate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. He was simply too happy. Senior 7 profound. He Wudi's eyes shone with a determined luster. I will not let you down. I will definitely do my best to assist the sect of all times. The absolute core of the brainstorm trio had already completely believed that the sect of all times was created by the 7 profound sage. Him being forced to come down to the mortal plane to become a member of the sect was definitely arranged by Senior 7 profound. Chapter 4. Chapter 1204. After distributing the 5th scroll, the disciples of the sect of all time started to study it seriously. During this period of time, Jun Changxiao used the excess contribution points to buy many martial arts techniques. Some were high and some were low, but the 7 profound sunglow break kept up with the rest of the scrolls and didn't get eliminated. For example, the Red Sky Raging Flame Slash. At the level of Martial King and Wu Huang, it could deal high damage. But as the level increased, the power would reach the upper limit and it would be hard to make substantial progress. This couldn't be helped. After all, martial arts techniques were divided into high and low levels. They were destined to be eliminated one day. Jun Changxiao's Rupturing Fist, Mountain Splitting Palm, and other first-generation martial arts that he had bought from the shop had also been relegated to the core disciples level. Of course. If there was an exit, there would be a replacement. After Jun Changxiao distributed the 5th scroll, he started to consider the future martial arts techniques of the sect. Thus, he opened the technique pavilion and seriously chose high-level martial arts techniques to provide more endurance for the disciples. When Shengwan Xiniao was studying the array, she didn't forget the patriarch's advice and created all kinds of worthless martial arts. Now, she had accumulated a lot and could use them to exchange. In such a big sect, both the upper echelons and the disciples were doing their jobs. Even the little rooster was in charge of waking up early every day to give the sect a buff. I'll choose this Universe 9 Seals Palm. Jun Changxiao carefully read through the technique pavilion and used all the palm techniques created by Shengwan Xiniao to purchase the Universe 9 Seals Palm. He actually wanted to buy this secret manual at first, but because he couldn't gather 999 palm techniques, he put it aside first. In the end, the author forgot about it. It didn't matter if it was too late or not. Since he had already bought it, the disciples had one more martial art technique in their library. Hoo-hoo! Hoo-hoo! On the martial arts field of the mountain peak where the disciples lived, 5 different attributes gradually appeared and then gathered at Yixingchen's fingertip, forming a colorful energy ball. So handsome! Junior brother Yi is too awesome. In just a few days, he comprehended the fifth scroll and successfully merged it with the first four scrolls. The disciples stood in the distance, their eyes filled with envy and admiration. He Wudi, who was sitting in front of the door, yawned. He had also learned and integrated the fifth remnant of the scroll, but he did not test its power in public, because it was not in line with his low-key luxurious character. Junior brother He, close the door. All right. Shwa. At this moment, Yixingchen, who had gathered all his power, raised his hand and pointed his middle finger and index finger at the distant sky. Colorful energy shot out and dragged out a long beam of light. Boom! The sharp corners of the mountain peaks dozens of miles away were instantly blasted into powder. To be able to hit him from such a distance, that's too awesome. The disciples were so shocked that their jaws dropped. Yixingchen was also very surprised. After comprehending Fragmented Scroll 5, he was able to extract a type of energy from heaven and earth. Although it would become more powerful after fusing them together, it shouldn't be this powerful. Senior brother Yi. He Wudi transmitted his voice to Yixingchen. For martial arts like 7 mysterious light break, there will be a qualitative change after the 5 scrolls are fused together. Cultivating all 7 scrolls will also result in a qualitative change, so the increase in power is more obvious than cultivating the 4th scroll. I see. Humph. Yixingchen said coldly in his mind, do you think I don't need you to tell me that? After cultivating the 5 scrolls and fusing them together, the power would be greatly increased, which immediately stimulated the disciples of the faction and made them put more effort into comprehending the scrolls. A few days later, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others learned the scrolls one by one. After testing them, they were all overjoyed. They were stuck at the peak of Wu Huang. Even if they cultivated every day, their power would still be limited. Now that they had fused with the 5 scrolls, they would definitely feel great. A warrior's own martial arts was important, but martial arts techniques, weapons, and equipment were also indispensable. In the parallel space battlefield, Jun Changshao had given all the treasures he had stolen to his disciples. They could defeat the Xian warriors when they were fully equipped, but once they took them off, they had no choice but to be terrified. Creak. One day, Yixingchen closed the door again. Then, he skillfully pressed his back against the door. His hand that was holding the Universe 9 Seal's palms was trembling slightly. The Patriarch had given him martial arts again. He had been especially diligent recently. No, his heart couldn't take it. After calming down, Yixingchen opened the first page of the scrolls. He saw that the first 3 palms could shake rivers and mountains, the middle 3 palms could shake the sun and moon, and the last 3 palms could reverse the universe. His eyes widened. Seriously? Or is he just bullshitting me? You will know after cultivating. Yixingchen hurriedly focused on comprehending the Universe 9 Seal's palms. He gradually understood it and said in surprise, this palm martial art is more profound than any of the ones I have learned before. The 9 heaven hidden realm could help the disciples break through faster. The 4 corners heaven and earth array could help the disciples have the power to fight against warriors of higher realms. The 7 mysterious sunglow scrolls and the Universe 9 Seal's palms greatly enriched their martial arts library. There was also the half-step wuxing elixir that he had just bought but didn't have the materials to refine. This clearly showed that the author wasn't just playing around. He was frantically preparing for the upcoming storm so that the disciples would have the strength to face it instead of standing on the side and cheering for the Patriarch. What kind of place is the Starry Sky Fortress? Jun Changshao sat in the study and thought. Although he had spent an extra 20,000 contribution points to buy the Universe 9 Seal's palms, he wouldn't forget about this so-called Starry Sky Fortress. After all, the underground black market was very tempting to him. Let's go take a look after the sect's level increases. Jun Changshao made up his mind. He took out the Universe 9 Seal's palms and started cultivating. Patriarch. At this moment, Bai Luocha transmitted her voice, another warship is coming. In the endless universe outside the Starfall continent, the ancient warship gradually came to a stop. Jun Changshao, who was standing at the bow of the ship, could clearly see a dot of light rapidly approaching. Patriarch. Bai Luocha said, the words Starry Sky Fortress Enforcer are written on the ship. Enforcer? Jun Changxiao's eyes turned cold as he said, do you really think of yourself as a police officer that protects the universe's peace? Swish. He raised his finger. Whoosh. 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 The 5 elements that existed in the universe were extracted and then gathered at his fingertip at the fastest speed, forming a colorful energy ball. Yi Xingchen and He Wudi were the fastest to comprehend? Wrong. Jun Changxiao was the first to fuse the universe 9 seals palms 5 and the first 4. Moreover, whether it was the speed of gathering or the eruption of his aura, he was clearly stronger than the other 2. After all, he had reached the consummate stage of wusheng. Little brother, what are you doing? Bai Luocha was stunned. Black Rakshasa frowned and said, it's so far away. Could it be, swish? At this moment, the energy ball gathered at Jun Changxiao's fingertip shot out like a rocket launcher. The long and wide 5-colored light beam seemed to pierce through the void and blasted toward the Starry Sky battlefield. Since it was written Starry Sky Fortress, the other party must be here to investigate the 5 tyrants of the Starry Sky. Thus, Gosheng did not intend to go through the procedures or reason with them. He would just directly take it and be done with it. The black-clothed man standing at the bow of the ship suddenly noticed the 5-colored light shooting toward them. He was stunned at first, but then he sneered and said, who is it that dares to sneak attack my Starry Sky Fortress Enforcer? 5th. Chapter 1205. The Starry Sky Fortress was feared by all the major planes in the mortal universe, and no one dared to provoke it. Today, the law enforcement battleship had been attacked while traveling normally. The black-robed man had not expected this. Who was so daring? Who was so daring? Whoosh! The black-robed man flew out of the battleship. He opened his hand and materialized a barrier. Not only did he want to stop it, but he also wanted to see who was so daring as to challenge the authority of the Starry Sky Fortress. However, just as he finished setting up the defensive enchantment and was sneering disdainfully, the light that seemed to be infinitely close to him suddenly split into 5 rays of light and bypassed him from different directions at an even faster speed. This sudden change caught the black-robed man off guard. Boom! 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 At this moment, a powerful explosion resounded in the universe. The colorful lights were like blooming fireworks, brightening up the surrounding darkness. The black-robed man's face was illuminated, and his smile froze. The battleship behind him had completely collapsed under the bombardment of the 5 beams of light. Hundreds of his subordinates had suffered heavy casualties, and only a few dozen were able to fly out of the light. Pooh! Pooh! The surviving powerhouses of the Starry Sky Fortress were bleeding profusely. From their sorry state, it was obvious that they were heavily injured. The power of a single 7 profound sunglow was limited, but when 5 different 7 profound sunglow came from different angles, the explosive power produced was definitely above the power of a commander. Jun Changxiao smiled. This was the first time he had used it after fusing the 5 scrolls. Without the support of any trump cards, he had the battle prowess of a martial emperor and was able to kill from a distance. This feeling was really great. The black-white double ghosts were calm. In their understanding, the 7 profound Saint Venerable was an almighty that was even more powerful than Senior Tonggu. Even if they did not learn all of the martial techniques he had created, they would still have terrifying power. Damn it! The black-robed man's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. He turned his head and looked at the area where the light beam had come from, his eyes filled with killing intent. Jun Changxiao raised his head and looked at him with his nose in the air. It had to be said that this action and aura really resembled that of the Rose Queen. His subordinates had suffered heavy casualties, and his battleship had been destroyed. The assailant had actually made such a provocative action. This made the black-robed man burn with rage. Shwa! He suddenly raised his right hand, and a longbow that was shining with golden light appeared. Then, he pulled the bowstring with his left hand and said coldly, "Boy, you have committed an unforgivable crime." Hoo-hoo! The heaven and earth attribute that existed in the universe instantly rushed over when the bowstring was pulled back, rapidly condensing into an arrow that emitted an aura of invincibility. This is the Stronghold Law Enforcement Bow. It was a weapon that only the law enforcement generals of the Starry Sky Fortress were qualified to wear. Based on the Falling Star Continent's ranking, the Red Lotus Demonic Moon Blade was definitely a high-grade divine artifact, comparable to the Rose Queen's Red Lotus Demonic Moon Blade. Death penalty. Jun Changxiao's eyes flashed with coldness. The 9 heavens and 10 earth sky spear appeared in the void and said, "Who the hell do you think you are to condemn me?" Hoo-hoo! All kinds of flames converged at the tip of the spear. The Chinibyu temperament of "I am in control of my own fate" instantly exploded. If paired with the red heaven armillary sash, wind fire wheels, smoky makeup, and a head of black hair that fluttered like a waterfall, he could totally act out the movie of Nez's demon child. The black-clothed man's left hand continued to pull the bowstring as he said coldly, "The Stronghold Law Enforcement Generals have the authority to condemn any mortal life form." Xiao! Just as he finished speaking, the arrow that seemed to represent the law enforcement judgment flew out in a flash, crossing the void and flying toward Jun Changxiao. Wherever it passed, it left behind a majestic aura in the universe. "This is..." The black and white double killers looked at each other and exclaimed, "The power of punishment." Why would a mortal weapon condense such an aura? Could it be? The white Rakshasa hurriedly transmitted her voice, "Big Idiot Black, is the Starry Sky Fortress related to the World Hall?" The black Rakshasa frowned. The power of punishment was a kind of power controlled by the World Hall. It was mostly used to punish mortal life forms that committed crimes. Now that the arrow contained this kind of power, there must be some kind of connection between the two. "Should we make a move?" the white Rakshasa asked. The black Rakshasa fell silent. If the Starry Sky Fortress was related to the World Hall, then it was the same as having a huge backer. He and the white Rakshasa came from the upper realm and were under the control of this department. If those old antiques found out, they would definitely fuck their grandpa. At this time, this daddy couldn't care less. Go! The black and white double killers flew out from the shadows, their eyes locked onto the arrow containing the power of punishment. In front of the 7 profound Saint Venerable and Venerable Tonggu, the World Hall was nothing. Today, they were sworn brothers, the master of the sect. So what if they offended them? 2 big brothers. Jun Changxiao transmitted his voice, "I'll leave this guy to this little brother." Ga. The black and white double killers instantly slammed on the brakes. The aura that they had painstakingly cultivated to fight against all laws disappeared. "Big Idiot Black, yesterday I ate 8 bowls of the fried rice that little girl Lu made. I ate 10 bowls. You must have been a reincarnated hungry ghost in your previous life." "Same to you." Although the 2 of them were chatting and pretending not to exist, they were still paying attention to the arrow containing the power of punishment. They were a little worried about whether the patriarch could withstand it. If it was purely strength, the black and white double killers wouldn't be worried. However, the arrow contained the power of punishment from the upper realm. This kind of special aura was extremely difficult for a mortal to casually resist. Whoosh! At this time, Jun Changxiao grabbed the blazing sky hegemon spear and rushed toward the arrow. His body was instantly enveloped by dozens of flames, as if he had turned into an ancient flame dragon roaring in the universe. Naive! The black-robed man sneered. The arrow from his enforcement bow contained the power of punishment from the upper realm. A guy who hadn't even reached the lower realm of the Void Shatterer realm actually dared to take it head-on. Boom! Suddenly, a violent explosion sounded in the universe. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The scorching power of fire spread out like crazy ripples. The dark environment was instantly dyed red. Shwa! Shwa! The black and white double killers hurriedly flew toward the falling star continent. Then, they stood in front of the falling star continent. A majestic aura emerged from their bodies and quickly materialized into two realms to block the incoming scorching waves. Inside the existential plane, the martial artists of various continents looked up. They could clearly see a crimson light flickering at the end of the sky. Thus, they asked in surprise, "What's going on?" "Big black idiot." The white Rakshasa, who had successfully blocked Weibo and the falling star continent, said, "This little brother of ours is quite powerful." The black Rakshasa didn't say anything. His attention was fully focused on the area enveloped in flames. He also noticed that there was a tower emitting an ancient aura inside. It was frantically absorbing the power of punishment that was spreading all around. What kind of supreme treasure is that? It can actually absorb the power of the upper realm. While the black and white double killers were shocked, they discovered that Jun Changshao was already standing in front of the black-robed man. The sky hegemon spear was pressed against the man's neck. "I hereby declare that you have committed a capital offense." "No," splat the spearhead, which contained a special power, directly pierced the black-robed man's neck. Scorching hot blood sprayed out and scattered in the universe. Chapter 1206. The black-clothed man, who was stronger than Guanzhou and the old man, was instantly killed by Jun Changshao. Moreover, he did not even use hard to stop. The black and white double killers were stunned. They knew that their little brother's armor had a strong defense. The power of punishment was also suppressed and absorbed by the tower. It was equivalent to losing its effect. In terms of strength alone, it might not be able to hurt him. However, it was unrealistic to kill his opponent so easily. Moreover, was that guy an idiot? He stood still on the spot. "That's not right." The black Rakshasa frowned. There was something strange about the cold light that gathered at the spearhead. He tried hard to recall the scene he had just captured. He had already combined it with the remaining aura in the universe. His expression changed as he exclaimed, "The power of thunder punishment." That's right. The light that gathered at the spearhead when he killed the black-clothed man was the power of thunder punishment. In the dimensional battlefield, Jun Changshao had been hit by 50% of the power of thunder punishment. Most of it had been absorbed by the heaven origin soul suppressing pagoda and trained by area. The first time he went to the Demon Emperor's gate to extort money, Shendejuan used a formation and a trace of the power of thunder punishment to make the half-saint suffer. The power from the upper realm was too rare. Jun Changshao was reluctant to use it. Today, when the arrow was shot, it contained the power that had punished him on the battlefield. He was furious. Could it be that because he had the aura of the upper realm, he thought that he could convict any living thing in the mortal world, and that he could convict himself? Fine. Then he could only give him a taste of his own medicine. Jun Changshao first hit the arrow and forced it to stop. He summoned the heaven origin soul suppressing pagoda to absorb the power of punishment. Then, he rushed in front of the black-clothed man and gathered all the power of thunder punishment into the spearhead. Poor guy. He did not even have time to say goodbye to the sixth palace master, whom he had known for a long time. "You have the power of punishment? I have the power of thunder punishment. If I have this power, I can punish all the people in the world. I declare that you are sentenced to death." The strong power of thunder punishment gathered at the spearhead. With the support of the weapon and Jun Changshao's cultivation, it emitted an undefiable aura. The black-clothed man was stunned. His enforcer Bao gathered the power of punishment because it came from the upper realm. Why did this guy's weapon also have that kind of supreme power? And it seemed to be of a higher level. How could the power of punishment compare to the power of lightning punishment? The black-robed man could only think about it in the underworld, because his neck had been mercilessly pierced through by the sky tyrant's spear. The thunder force from the upper realm turned into dense electric currents, instantly destroying his internal organs, mind, and soul. He did not even have the chance to scream. "General!" The surviving stronghold martial artists suddenly turned pale with fright. One of the law enforcement generals appointed by the fortress master was easily obliterated by that guy. Retreat! Retreat! After a short while, everyone fled in panic. Their boss had been killed, and their companions were either injured or dead. They definitely couldn't fight recklessly. However, they didn't have a space battleship. Even if they were extremely fast, they were nothing more than a group of ants that had fallen into an endless sea. You think you can come and go as you please? What do you take the falling star continent for? Jun Changshao waved his hand coldly and took back the stronghold enforcer bow from the black-clothed man. He placed 2 fingers on the golden string and pulled it. Unfortunately, it did not condense into an arrow. Little brother. Bai Luocha said, there should be a brand inside this weapon. Only the person who set it up can use it normally. Just as she was speaking, Jun Changxiao's soul had already merged into the enforcer bow. Not only did he see the brand, but he also saw the weapon spirit that was cowering in the corner and trembling. It had seen everything that happened outside, especially when it felt the power of lightning punishment just now. That was why it was so frightened. Punishment was just a method of the upper realm. The so-called power of punishment was nothing more than the most basic. There was still the power of lightning punishment above that. It would only appear when it could not do anything to the target. You. Jun Changshao said coldly, submit to me. Submit. I will definitely submit. The weapon spirit was scared out of its wits. It directly merged with the stranger's soul, then owed him a master-servant contract and formed a brand new brand. If the black-clothed man who died knew that he had gone through so much to gain this proud guy's approval, but in the end, it was settled by Jun Changshao with just 5 words, he would definitely come back to life and die again. The weapon spirit of the upper realm was actually so cowardly. Buddha! Whoosh! Whoosh! After completely controlling the weapon spirit, Jun Changshao pulled the bowstring and instantly gathered a golden arrow. He locked on to a fortress martial artist who was escaping and said coldly, you shall be sentenced to death. Swish! The arrow that carried the power of punishment pierced through the universe at a speed that was hard to be seen by the naked eye. The fortress martial artist who was escaping suddenly felt the omen of death. His eyes were filled with horror and despair. No, boom! Light flashed and illuminated the starry sky. SSS. When the other fortress martial artists saw their companions being mercilessly killed by the arrow of punishment, they were so shocked that their souls almost flew out of their bodies. Swish! The ancient battlefield flew through the starry sky and slowed down to follow behind them. The current situation was very similar. At the end of the movie, Black Panther, played by Huang Bo, was running wildly with bread in his mouth. The shop owner was chasing behind him with a small motorcycle. They were already injured, and now they were being chased by the battleship. The fortress martial artists were really on the verge of collapse and despair. In the end, they simply stopped and faced Jun Changshao with a stance that said, I am going to leave the Kunlun Mountains with my life intact. Not running anymore. My prison door is always open. I am waiting for you with open arms. Jun Changshao also realized that he and the Starry Sky Fortress were at odds. There were no more misunderstandings between them, only hatred. Since the other party had sent people here twice, they would come again. Therefore, he killed the law enforcement general and many of his subordinates before locking up the remaining martial artists. It was equivalent to a showdown and a falling out. Zhao Daodu was overjoyed. He had just sent off Guan Zhou and the old man, and now a group of fellow prisoners was here. Jun Patriarch. Zhao Daodu stood in front of the prison door and shouted, there have been more prisoners recently. You can modify the prison so that it can accommodate more people. I have a suggestion. You can dig down from the prison and build a few layers of prison system. Then, you can lock the prisoners in the corresponding prison according to their strength. Dai Lu was on the verge of collapse. Did this guy really forget that he was also a prisoner? He actually wanted others to modify the prison so that he could torture himself better. There must be something wrong with his brain. After returning to the main hall, Jun Changshao pondered over Zhao Daodu's suggestion. He then called Li Qingyang over and said, there have been a lot of prisoners in the sect recently. I'm afraid it won't be able to accommodate them all. If you have the time, you can modify it. Yes. Li Qingyang's eyes lit up. He had modified the sect and built a city before, but he had never come into contact with prison design. He could use his free time to plan and create a very high-end and humanized prison system. Chapter 1207. Jun Changshao also realized that the experts he came into contact with were getting stronger and stronger, and he himself was not a bloodthirsty person. Since he could not kill them all, nor could he let them all go, he might as well build a prison to lock them all up. In any case, the sect of all times did not lack the money for a few bowls of rice. Moreover, after Zhao Daodu gave his suggestion, Go Shen came up with another idea. That was to divide the cells into different levels and let the prisoners of different strengths enter. They could be used as sparring partners for the disciples. Eating for free was definitely not a good idea. Even if you are locked up in prison, you have to show your worth. The bald man and his subordinates were still locked up in the earth room. Their strength ranged from Martial King, Wu Huang, and Semi-Sage. They were placed in different levels of cells, and the disciples could choose their own difficulty. Of course, they could not treat the prisoners as people. They could set up a reward system and let them be happy as sparring partners. If they performed well, they would get an extra drumstick every day. If Zhao Daodu heard this, he would definitely say, "I'm not lacking a drumstick, I'm lacking Miss Lu's bowl of fried rice." Although it's a prison on the surface, it can actually be used for disciples to train in actual combat. Pa! Jun Changshao clapped his hands and praised, "Good idea, good idea." The system was speechless. Using someone else's suggestion to praise himself, how shameless must he be to do this? "I need to remind the host," the system said, "since you want to use the prisoners as sparring partners, you need to unlock their chi channels. Aren't you afraid that they will all run out?" Jun Changshao rubbed his chin and said, "That makes sense." Other than Zhao Daodu, the rest of the prisoners in the prison had their chi channels sealed. They could only move normally and had no cultivation at all. However, if they were all unsealed, their individual strength might not be a problem, but if they were all gathered together, something would definitely happen. Looks like this prison plan needs to be carefully considered. The defense facilities also need to be considered thoroughly. We must not let the prisoners riot or escape. Jun Changshao said solemnly. Moreover, the system added, "Since you want to build a prison that can accommodate many prisoners, you need someone to watch over it. Does the host plan to let Hall Masterly work part-time?" "That won't do." Jun Changshao said, "Ever since the intelligence network was spread throughout the continent, Hall Masterly has been very busy every day. He has to choose someone else to manage the prison. Since that Zhao Daodu gave the suggestion and refused to leave heaven, he should have developed a deep and true relationship with the prison. He can be in charge of this area." The system ridiculed, "The poor guy who's been here for almost 1,000 chapters is finally going to make it." In the heaven cell, Zhao Daodu was completely unaware that the system was pitying him. He was sitting cross-legged on the ground with a small stick in his mouth. Sometimes he closed his eyes, sometimes he held his chin, as if he was thinking about something. There was a scribbled picture on the ground. This was the sketch of the prison that he had come up with. In the beginning, it was divided into 3 levels, top, middle, and bottom. However, based on the frequency and number of inmates coming in recently, he realized that it was definitely not enough, so he simply added another 6 levels to make 9 as the limit. In terms of drawing, Zhao Daodu could not compare to Li Qingyang. After all, his talent was limited. He just randomly added whatever ideas he had in his mind. In the end, it became a hodgepodge. Dai Lu could not stand this guy who had dug a hole for himself. He directly grabbed a stone from the side and threw it at him. "Pa!" Zhao Daodu raised his hand and caught the stone with 2 fingers. He said rather proudly, "I'm not trying to discourage you. Even if you release your meridian, you might not be able to hit me." Dai Lu's eyes flashed with surprise. Although he did not have any strength and the stone he threw was not lethal, from the way this guy caught the stone, he seemed to have some ability. Could it be, he was hiding his strength? Sigh. Zhao Daodu stood up, patted his butt and sat down in the wooden house. He looked at the window hesitantly and said, "If you think that I'm not leaving the prison to freeload, then you're very wrong." Thinking of the expression on this guy's face when he was eating, Dai Lu said with certainty in his heart, "You're doing this to freeload." I, Zhao Daodu, was born without a good identity, and also without a good talent. Living in this world, I belong to those pitiful people who will starve to death on the streets if I don't work hard. Zhao Daodu lowered his head, his eyes brewing with the emotion of fate is unfair, but I can only choose to compromise. To live. To rise above others. I began to learn to lie to others, to lie to myself. Perhaps being locked up here is the heavens punishing me for the mistakes I once made, but... At this point, Zhao Daodu's emotions were a bit unbearable. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she said, "Everything I've done was for the sake of living." Dai Lu looked at him from beginning to end. His heart was also filled with mixed feelings. You were born without an identity, I was born without one. You were born with a talent, I was born without one. Joining the Spirit Spring Sect, joining the Holy Spring Sect, was it not all for the sake of living? Ever since these two brothers became cellmates, they did not have any common topics to talk about, but in this aspect, they had the feeling that they were both people who had fallen to the same fate. Of course. Zhao Daodu wiped away the tears on his face, smiling. I'm very fortunate to be locked up in the sect of all times, because the heaven and earth attribute here is something I have never seen before. The atmosphere of the sect here is also something I have never imagined. Although Dai Lu really wanted to deny it, but this was the truth. I feel that fate is fair. When I receive my punishment, I still have good food to eat, and the heaven and earth attribute to cultivate. Otherwise, I'm afraid that right now, my deception would have been exposed long ago and I would have died without a burial ground. Dai Lu suddenly understood. This guy did not leave the prison not because he was freeloading, but because he was freeloading on the heaven and earth attribute of the sect of all times. In other words, his chi channels were sealed and he could not cultivate, but this guy could cultivate all day long in prison. After being locked up for so long, his realm should not be low, right? What a clever little brat, ah! Moreover, Zhao Daodu said, if I wasn't locked up in prison, how could I become cellmates with so many high realm experts, so, I'm very happy. I treat this place as my home. Clap clap clap. Applause sounded. Zhao Daodu's expression suddenly stiffened. Because Dai Lu, who was sitting in front of him, had his hands on his legs. Where did the applause come from, Shua? He turned around as fast as he could and saw Jun Changshao sitting on the chair with a cigar in his mouth. He clapped his hands and said, to be able to comprehend the principles of home in prison, this makes this seat feel very gratified and touched. Jun Patriarch. You. When did you come? When you were crying, this seat was already here. Zhao Daodu hurriedly wiped his tears. When he thought about how a 7-foot man like him actually cried, and how an outsider saw it, he was so embarrassed that he wanted to find a hole to hide in. Pa! At this moment, Jun Changshao walked over, put a hand on his shoulder, and asked seriously, are you willing to become a member of the sect of all times and follow this seat to conquer the world? Chapter 1208. Are you willing to become a member of the sect of all times and follow me to conquer the world? When these words entered Zhao Daodu's ears and reached his sea of consciousness, he stood there like a wooden sculpture. His eyes were blank, as if he had completely lost his soul. No one knew how many nights he had been locked up, dreaming of himself wearing the sect of all times uniform. No one knew how disappointed and pained he felt every time he returned to reality from his dreams. No! Dai Lu, who was locked in the same cell as him, knew. Because he often saw that guy curled up on the wooden bed in the middle of the night, as if he did not fit in with the world. Zhao Daodu's cultivation was not high, but his mentality was good. In order to move Jun Changshao, he had turned into a spiritual teacher and instilled chicken soup for the prisoners. Wasn't it all to prove his ability? Father, mother. Zhao Daodu muttered to himself, am I dreaming? Boom! An explosive kick came, sending him flying and crashing into the wall. Intense pain instantly spread throughout his body. What about now? Jun Changshao asked. This kick was not to let Zhao Daodu understand that he was not dreaming, but to see what level he had reached with the help of the Sect of all times heaven and earth attribute. Not bad. He had reached the peak of martial master. Jun Changshao had already forgotten how high Zhao Daodu's realm was when he came in, but he estimated that it was between martial disciple and martial master. Without the help of various tools and profound mental cultivation techniques, to break through to such a level in prison. Damn it, after being locked up for so long, he had not even reached Wuzong. His aptitude was too bad. Letting him manage the prison was a bit difficult to control. Of course, Jun Changshao did not plan to let his warden have the ability to push Magellan into the city, but at the very least, he could not be too weak. Moreover, the prisoners in the Earth prison were martial emperors, Wusheng, and other powerhouses. Letting a small martial master manage it seemed very interesting. The system was speechless. What was the hosts thinking? Painful. It was very painful. It wasn't a dream, it was real. Zhao Daodu, who had fallen against the wall, tried his best to prop himself up with both hands. Then, he saw that the ground was gradually getting wet, and bean-sized tears slid down his cheeks. He had waited for many years for Jun Changshao to recruit him. Today. At this time. At this moment. Finally. He had finally made it. As long as the heart is there, the dream is there. There is still true love between heaven and earth. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Tears fell drop by drop. Zhao Daodu's emotions had already completely gone out of control. Dai Lu really wanted to mock and despise this guy, but every time he thought of the day this guy would fantasize about becoming a disciple of the Sect of all times, he instinctively chose to remain silent. He had his own choices, and he also had his own ideals. I can't despise and mock Jun Changshao just because I hate the Sect of all times. Inexplicably, Dai Lu felt quite happy because this chicken soup maniac had finally been released from prison. He could finally have some peace and quiet. If not for Jun Changshao and Zhao Daodu, he might have improvised a dance and started singing Mad Waves. Don't ask why. The main peak's practice field was directly opposite the Heaven Cell's window. The disciples had their daily morning exercises. Not only could the two brothers hear beautiful music, they could also see them dancing. Don't cry. Jun Changshao said, make your choice. Shwa. Zhao Daodu stood up and then knelt down with a plop. With tears and snot all over his face, he said loudly, I, Zhao Daodu, am willing to become a member of the Sect of all times. I am willing to follow Jun Patriarch and conquer the world. Li Qingyang smiled. Xiao Ziji and Su Xiaoma, who were standing outside the cell, also smiled. This guy who had been locked up in prison for so many years was finally going to join the big family and become a part of it. They were happy for him. They were gratified for him. In the past, the Sect of all times disciples' mission was to eat, sleep, and beat Daodu. Even now, eating and sleeping was still the same. Daodu had stopped beating Daodu a long time ago because he had become stronger. He was afraid that the other party would not be able to handle it. You will be accepted into the sect in a few days. Jun Changshao said, stay in the cell for a while. Because the number of disciples had reached 70,000, accepting him into the sect would have to wait until all the missions were completed and the sect's construction was improved. Understood. Zhao Daodu said loudly. After staying in the cell for so long, he would definitely not be able to adapt immediately if he suddenly walked out. It was not a bad idea to wait here for a while and slowly accept reality. Did you draw the picture on the ground? Jun Changshao asked. Yes, Patriarch. Zhao Daodu had not become a disciple yet, but the word patriarch had already been removed. What did you draw? Patriarch, this is a sketch of the prison that your disciple drew. The corner of Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. To be able to draw such a wild sketch, this guy's artistic talent was at most 1 point, right? Patriarch. Li Qingyang rubbed his chin and said, Daodu's sketch is very good. Jun Changxiao was shocked. Weren't you outside the cell? When did you come in? Also, this kind of picture that seems to have been randomly poked with a wooden stick, you actually think it's good? Then wouldn't I be able to change my profession and become an artist tomorrow? Li Qingyang observed seriously. After a while, he took out a pen and paper and copied it, saying, Patriarch, Daodu's drawing has given me a lot of inspiration. I will go back and improve it a little. Jun Changxiao was speechless. Mortals really did not understand the world of a master architect. What about you? Do you want to join the sect of all times? Jun Changxiao looked at Dai Lu, but the latter was still as unyielding as ever and said, I will not compromise. Creak. The door closed and Jun Changxiao left. He was just casually asking. Since this guy was still so stubborn, he would spend the rest of his life in the sect of all times prison. Ha ha ha. In the prison, Zhao Daodu's laughter could be heard from time to time. His face was filled with joy and excitement, and even when he was sleeping at night, he could not help but laugh out loud. No, no. Since the patriarch had taken him in, he had to perform well. Thus, Zhao Daodu began to earnestly persuade Dai Lu, persuading him until he was about to bleed from all 7 orifices. Patriarch. Li Qingyang placed a design on the table and said, This is Daodu's sketch. I have slightly improved it. Pft. Jun Changxiao spat out the tea in his mouth. The design was sharp and had a total of 9 floors. Each floor corresponded to the number of floors in the prison. It could be said that it was professional and detailed, allowing one to understand it at a glance. It was a world of difference from Zhao Daodu's drawing. How was this a slight improvement? This was a complete plastic surgery, from the inside out, from head to face. Li Qingyang's design was indeed copied from Zhao Daodu's sketches. It was just that the wild style had turned into a realistic style. Not bad, not bad. After careful observation, Jun Changxiao expressed his satisfaction. Especially since the layout of each floor had corresponding facilities. Without rich prison experience, it was impossible to think of such a comprehensive design. Patriarch. Li Qingyang said, When do we start? Wu Huang's realm was stuck at the peak, and it was difficult to improve in a short period of time. Not long ago, he went to the little cold village, and now he was really free. He wanted to find something to do. Let's do it tomorrow. Yes. Don't forget to bring Paige. It'll be faster if it's in charge of digging. Yes. Without a disciple proficient in deception, he gained a disciple who guarded the prison. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.